To the November 26th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comment. 1, 2, 3, 4. No?
No comment?
No comment? Okay. Department head committee items?
Benji, do you have anything before the CIP?
No, I guess I didn't have anything. I just, hopefully everybody understands road work came kind of to a screeching halt because of weather, so not saying I'm done, but it's got to stop. I got Twin Bridge culvert I'll try to get put in this winter, and I didn't forget about Bogue Road, but
Right at them.
we've gotten 2 3 to 5 inch storms and 1 1 to 3 inch storm and 6 inches of rain in the last 3 weeks, so it kind of makes road work hard. So I don't think anybody else is doing it. And dirt roads are going to be like they are in the spring. They're going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible this year. So hopefully everybody can be patient with that.
Is everything done completely? Even, I know the plants aren't quite closed yet. I think they were holding out for...
To go to the middle of December, R&D
Right.
told me. So I was hoping to patch Colby and Twin Bridge, because I don't know if I've been in since I had to do Colby Road. I had to do an emergency repair on Colby Road, which was on our list, but it was a big job and I got forced into it. So sorry, it's done now. So put a 4-foot pipe in with a 2-foot overflow, so should never have a problem with that again.
Okay.
We need to patch that, so
Okay.
I don't know.
How's that going to stick when it's so cold, though? Is it going to stick all right? Okay.
Not the greatest.
Would it be just as better to leave it till
The
spring?
patches where the dirt are be okay.
Okay.
The overlays ain't gonna be worth a damn, but they wouldn't have been on up there anyhow. So
No.
I was hoping to, do what I said and try to put a mend on it, but
Okay.
it ain't gonna stick in this cold weather. An overlay, pavement
No.
on top of other pavement.
No, not frozen pavement.
If I can put down a few dollars worth, I will, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's looking very good.
Okay.
Believe me, I weren't ready for winter.
No.
I mean, as in wanting it yet.
Yeah, it came right in, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, up next we'll recognize Jack Dearborn with a 2019 CIP presentation.
I gave everyone a copy.
You do?
It's, you're gonna run into a couple pages that were double-sided that we fixed after you went to the planning board. Somebody had started making copies single-sided, and then, so the double-sided got fit in between. So if you come to a single-sided.
You got, yeah, that
So I have copies here, but
upside down.
you are going to finance on Wednesday night. So, I mean, I can give you finance ones now, but you won't get one Wednesday night, so.
Almost half a reading the paper. Just the facial expressions out there.
How many trees?
Hey, stop skipping ahead.
I already looked at some. I'm just looking to see which pages have been corrected. I knew there was a couple.
Half a ton of paper here. No, you noted you didn't get one. Michael, you wanted to follow along?
Sure.
Then I'll just ask for it back, I'll be cheap. Frugal's the word, I think.
Conscientious.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jack Dearborn. I am the chairman of the CIP subcommittee member, and the members are on page 2. Stu Richard Veitch, Chair, Steve Roberts, Gary Shelto, Jan Snyder, ex officio, and Bruce Fillmore as planning board member. I just want to say thank you up front to Naomi for putting this package together with me. She did most of the electronic work. And also Beth Roos, who is the CFO for the town. She did a lot of the spreadsheets with me. And Chip Meany, who did most of the coordination for this through the meetings that we had through the summer. Thank you very much. Before I start, let me just remind everybody kind of why we're here. When a town adopts a planning board, which we've done, and it decides, based on that, to set up a master plan, there's two pieces that are below the master plan, which have to tie to the master plan. The first is subdivision regulations. The planning board traditionally does, and they do that on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. This is how they separate, segment, and the use of land is done through the planning board. The other piece, which isn't very often talked about, except when I get up here, is the planning board is responsible to see that the capital assets for the town are adequate to operate to the master plan, so it ties together. So what I want to make a point about this is that this is the piece that can be delegated to a subcommittee, which was done, I believe it was at town meeting. So they established a subcommittee, so we are responsible as a subcommittee to the planning board. We already met with them, I guess, when was that? On the 8th of this month.
Yes.
You did.
And was accepted. So we are moving it on to the select board tonight, and we're also moving it on Wednesday night to the finance committee. Just so I can give you kind of an overview, this is sort of the nutshell, and I take this out of page 4 of the CIP procedure. Capital improvement is defined as an expenditure for public facilities or equipment costing more than $15,000 and having a useful lifespan of at least 3 years. CIP expenditures are considered beyond the scope of a normal annual operating budget or maintenance expenses. So anything that's basically 1 year that gets refreshed every year through a budgeting exercise is called the operating budget. This is what I'm going to address here, are things that are longer than 1 year and more than $15,000. And here's the example of them. Land acquisition for public use, new buildings or additions, vehicles or other machinery with a useful life greater than 3 years, major building, facility, or utility renovation or expansion, extended use of life for facilities or equipment, major road renovations, special studies for such as assessments and/or master plan updates. And the last one is studies or architectural plans for capital improvement projects that exceed $15,000. So under this 8 items that we have, all these requests fall within that. If they're not, they would tend to be an operating nature, and we would kick that over to the select board for their operating budget process. Okay, so page 3 basically lists the types of priorities. This evening you'll only hear 1 and 2, and anything with 3 to 6 is in years 2 through 6 from here out, meaning 2020, 2024. So you're only going to see either 1s or 2s, and some people hurt their head by wondering which one's more important than the other. Well, we can't have 2 number 1s. So we picked urgent, and this is basically for life and safety purposes. The other one is necessary within the year. They're all the same, they just have 2 categories to put the items in. Chart 4, 5, and 6 is an eye chart, and I really don't want to spend much time on that, other than these are the requests within the current year of 2019 and going out to 2024 that we know of from the departments. Benji's got his equipment in there. Both chiefs have, and I don't know what else, but basically that's what makes up the whole. Oh, there may be some town ones as well in the future.
When was this updated, Jack?
2 days ago?
Well,
This year.
We're missing 2 trucks on the highway department.
It should be. Well, you mean the total list of?
No,
Yeah.
it stops at the 2015 Kenworth. We don't show either of the Western Stars in the line.
Well,
Which truck number? You saying that's absent?
yeah.
No,
No, the
think
truck
I think
number's
the numbers
there.
are there, but the actual description
The
Description's
is
on.
not there. The 2 Western Stars are missing.
T6 and T3 probably, right?
Well, 3 and now 11. The tanker changed.
Right, the tanker changed.
Oh, this is the
I
swap.
just don't see
3
it
and
reflected,
11.
that's all.
We just swapped.
Well, it was done 2 days ago, but obviously we can fix those.
Yeah,
So the
that's
intent
right.
here is that this is meeting the 6-year requirement of the RSA, which directs what's to be done in a CIP plan. So moving on to page 7 and 8, which is really, we call this the whiteboard chart. And what I mean by that is, after we've done all the requests, we decide what gets moved out in the future years, what gets pushed over to operating budgets, and then what we're left with here is these ones. And so, basically, you'll see the department, you'll see priority, request priority funding, and then also type of funding, and cost impact by taxes, and also 2019, yes, impacted taxes, net of any capital reserve or offsetting revenues, and then the priority at the end. So basically, we're going to take each one of these items individually. I just want to say that these 2 pages, 7 and 8, are reflecting for CIP request for 2013, not any long-term or short-term debt from prior years' CIP request is $1.13. If you look at short and long-term debt, which is the building we purchased for the highway department, and I believe the only one left is the grader. And I think the ambulance is a pass-through. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, to make sure. All right, going to the fire department, the chief has requested 3 things. First of all, the Durango, which was supposed to be the chief's pass down from the police department, the fire chief's, pass down to him. That's basically sitting over at Benji's location, rusting away. It's not fit for service, it's not fit for the road. So the chief has basically been operating by driving the 4-wheel drive F-350, which is meant basically for plowing and various other issues, not necessarily be his frontline vehicle. The problem with that is, unlike a SUV, which he's asking for like a Durango type of a vehicle, inside the whole envelope of the vehicle is air conditioned and heated out of the weather, whereas the back of the truck, even if they put a cap on it, it's still in the weather. It's not best practice to put electronic equipment, other stuff he would otherwise put in the back of an SUV, into the back of a pickup truck. So basically, a lot of the equipment that he needs is sitting on the floor or at the fire station. So he's requesting this year $48,000 coming out of his special revenue fund, which is basically what's the residual after paying for the administration charges for anything related to ambulance refunds from insurances or from individuals for the ambulance runs. Anything left to that goes into special revenue fund after you pay for the administrative cost of billing. And so this is $48,000. It is covered. It'll have a 0 impact to taxes if that's coming out of special revenue fund. Boat is a boat which is replacing a fully inflatable boat with a trailer and a power motor on it. And this is a semi-rigid, and you'll see that, I think it's on page 12. And it affords, you can see the bullets there, it affords more suitable for larger open waters such as Lake Horace, the rough waters, and the speed to get to any place on Lake Horace and or Clough State Park. It allows to operate over a broader range of environmental conditions and also time to get there. Because you only really have a certain number of places to put boats in, either one of those areas. So this allows that. Plus the other one is getting wear and tear, and this is more stable and carries more people. So he's requesting that as well, $25,000. That includes the boat, the trailer, and I believe it's the motor. Moving on to the third one, and this is special revenue fund-funded thermal image cameras. This is basically, instead of looking at an optical image of what reflects back the light that we see with our eyes, a regular camera, like what's going on tonight. This is tuned for the frequency of infrared. And the difference in colors come back to differences of temperature and frequency. So what this does is basically allows going from black and white, I believe they have now, to color. Not only that, the definition and also the dynamic range, the gradients between colors, meaning the temperatures, is more fine. And plus, the reliability issues. So it's always best to buy a coordinated upgrade at one time. So nobody has to be trained for a separate piece of equipment. So this has been a while since we got him, and he's asking for a coordinated upgrade for 4 of these items. Any questions on the fire department? Yes, Jan?
I just have one. There's a change in funding on the chief's car since earlier.
Oh, I thought it was, well, I've always thought it's come out of special revenue. Some people think
Well, there's still a discussion on it.
there's money
too.
coming out of,
That's what he presented to us.
The way it was presented to us at the,
if you
At
want
the
to give them,
CIP,
if
I
you want to
mean-
give them 80% of the $48,000 because they think they got the money coming to them because they paid 75% of the previous something or other, the ladder truck.
I believe it should be coming out of the special revenue. That's why I'm asking you.
And like I said at the meeting, that's sort of your decision.
Okay.
And I'm taking it as if it's coming out of the special revenue fund.
Okay.
If you wish to give it to him out of your fund,
No.
I don't want to get involved in that.
Okay. Okay. No.
Right.
I was
I know he
questioning.
presented
It's just
that
like
way.
any
I was just
articles you can
questioning
take
it.
out.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool.
all.
You can fund them however you want to fund them, just like
Okay.
This is
the
the
last few
need.
years of the cars, there's
Right.
said tax into.
Even if you do
We've taken it out of the other.
commit 2016's money for 2018 monies for 2019 purchases, by however you do that magic, by, what do you do at the earmark it for expenditure next year?
We wave a wand. I'm just kidding.
Whatever it is. Your decision. So,
The funding can be changed.
well,
We've done it before, for the police cars.
no, that's my point. I don't know what the exact term is, but you wish to do that, you can do that. If not,
Jack, is this a new vehicle that he's requesting?
yes. It's
Okay.
like a Durango, it's a four-wheel drive SUV.
Because I know we don't always buy brand new, we sometimes buy a lease. That's my question
Oh.
on you.
Well, again, the funding, that's a question of how you pay for them. Like, if you need the
Right.
3 cars, you could do what's called a quote municipal lease. And what it means is, it'll basically divide the number of the cost of the vehicle, in this case, 3. So you get 3 equal payments for 3 years. At the last year, you pay $1, you own the car. The reason they do that in the state of New Hampshire law is you cannot commit the town more than 1 year without a bond. So this is a little bit of a thing between a bond and a annual expense. It's all allowed.
Yeah.
So if at the end of 1 year, whoever decides they don't want it anymore, they got to take it back. You don't have to pay the other 2 years.
Right.
That's the vehicle, I mean, the mechanism by which they do this funding.
Mm-hmm.
We did it for Greater.
And they usually go off, this price came from the state bid list,
Yeah, that's for a Chevy
like
Tahoe.
the
You could do it either
state
way.
police use.
The question is, I think the money's there.
Right.
And unless you think next year there won't be enough money there for whatever he wants next year, in that case, you can at least kick this over 3 years. You know, so it allows towns to not have to pay for an entire item in 1 year. It gives them a means of spreading it like 3 years for cars and little trucks. Graders, was it 5?
We did 3.
You do 3 for the grader?
Some of them are
I don't
five.
know.
Some are
So
five.
it allows towns to
Yeah.
pay for something over a period of years where they'd otherwise have to
Especially
pay it
bigger
in one
ones.
single year.
Right.
Any other questions on fire? Okay. Police, if you recall, I recall it 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, actually even 5 years before that, a request was made every year for 1 car. And all 5 years, I believe, they got turned down. So on the 6th year, the request was, we need 5 cars because we have this disaster of trying to keep cars on the road. It's repair cost and time on station for people, rather than have to drive cars around for repair, or decide which car is gonna not run that day. So this is like the third installment. We have 3 in 2016. Did I get that right? 3 in 2017, 1 in 2017, and last.
3 in 17, 1 in 18,
There you go.
1 in 19.
Thank you. So basically, this is the last car left of the suite of 5 cars that was determined but not supported by the town. And then 3 came up and it was supported. 1 last year, and they asked for 2. You prescribed 1 for the warrant. Got passed. So this is basically giving the capability of the police fleet of 5 frontline vehicles. And that leaves ACO car, which is basically parked, I understand, or maybe it's moved back to the place. But the problem with that is it's relatively low miles. It's 95,000 miles. But nobody really wants to ride in it. It's a biohazard. It had, how many years? It was K9s? Just the whole air conditioning and heating system and all the seats and everything else is pretty bad. So it's an issue. The real question is, there's 2 vehicles left, I guess, after this replaces it, and this will replace, I think it's 1 more. No, I guess it will replace
9.
the last 9, correct? And this on page, 2 pages from here?
14.
14. And that'll leave the Taurus, which is light blue chief car, and the 13 SUV, which replaced the 11 Taurus that got wrecked. Is that correct?
Sounds pretty close.
So this is the last one coming up. You'll see the 3 greens. Those are the ones bought in 17. The blue is this year. It's just basically got delivered not too long ago. It takes almost through the end of the summer to get a vehicle all fitted up with all the chattel over the base vehicle. And that is being requested at $46,000, and we put an escalator on that because they can't get a commitment for a 2019 purchase. Just haven't come out with it. We were hoping to upgrade this today or yesterday, but we haven't been able to get that. So to make sure there's enough money requested, the only amount of money that's going to be spent is what's used to fit it up to the specification you already have. So it isn't like they got to go spend the other money, as far as I'm concerned. So basically, that's the only request from the chief, and that is the request impacted taxes at 6 cents per 1,000. And if you look on page 15, this is sort of the trajectory of where running junk may save money on the acquisition cost, but it does nothing to save money on repair costs. You can see the trend going up, and this is still going up. We don't know what the 4th quarter is going to be. It's going to be pretty close to $20,000 at the end of this year. And it's not only so much the impact for the repairs, it's also the impact for the personnel who are trying to do their jobs as sworn officers. A lot of times, the car doesn't start or doesn't run well enough to take it on patrol, and then they got to go figure out which one's going to run for the evening. Or somebody's got to go transport these down to some place to get them fixed. And the problem is, we don't have expediters in the town to run these around. It's people that are paid with full benefits and a professional salary, be it police officers, running these things around to get them fixed. 2 people are out when 1 vehicle's got to be transferred down. So it's a hidden cost of downtime of people on duty, and also the service disruption as well. And people have an expectation that when you dial 911, somebody's going to show up. Any questions on the police? There's a sort of like what's going to happen in the future. This is all yet to be defined, but in 2021, possibly move car 6 down to the east. That's the 2013 SUV. Move it down. That's as soon as you get somebody hired for an ACO. But let's suggest that happens. At least that'll be a way of backfitting and repurposing that down. Okay, any questions on the police? Parks and Rec? Parks and Rec came in this year for architectural engineering survey, and it's basically, as you can see the notes on page 17, their estimate $19,000 is 2 cents on 1,000 for impact, and what they're requesting is do an architectural engineering survey for the purpose of looking at what we have for capability today, looking at what the need of the town is with the Athletic Association, and then coming up with a plan. One of the things is there's a belief that there is room enough on beside Ineson's park there on Quaker Street to put another ball field. Okay? Then there's also a longer term issue. Once Benji gets done excavating his material off the East Street property, then the intent was to use that old borrow pit he will finish off some point, put athletics fields. So there's a 10-year plan for that as well. So this, hopefully, based on their expectations, will meet what the current is, what the capability is, and what the need is, as well as laying a groundwork for the future. So that's the request for that. Any questions on that? Moving on to Board of Selectmen. You guys probably have beat this pretty hard. It's 66.5, and it's 8 cents on 1,000. And this is to do a roofing of the safety complex. I understand you got multiple bids and come up with a relative average that you're willing to stand up for. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I think this includes venting, which there may be an inadequacy. And also, in the event, we get windstorms, if you put a bismuthane, which is that mastic in a roll, black sticky stuff when the sun's out, and it's basically a layer you put down. It takes the place of the old tar paper. So in the event, and it's ice and water shield, actually. In the case the shingles do blow off, it's self-sealing. So you won't get any water damage, which is principally the biggest cost. And if you do have a slight leak, which otherwise would penetrate it, you're not going to lose plywood, integrity of the plywood, or some structural. So, any questions on that? Okay, thank you. Now we get to Benji's, and this is going to be sort of a complicated. The first three are pretty straightforward. So I'll kind of go through those first, and then we'll talk about the road reconstruction. There's some options here that we'd like you guys to consider. First of all, what Benji's asking for, looking at the front sheet on page 19, is replace yet another 10-wheeler. Now, you say, gee, we bought 3 or 4 over the last few years. Well, the problem is we took a hiatus for 6 years. We bought a bunch of trucks. We're talking about the large trucks now. The big 10-wheelers, 6-wheelers. Since that time, we took a hiatus for 6 years. Didn't buy one. So now we're forced into a situation where trucks are coming at their useful service life, and that's either reliability or just functional. If I can ask you to go to the next page, this is truck T3. And some of the descriptions, page 20?
Yeah, the picture is 3.
Picture is 3.
Yeah. And this here is the pictures I took at the grand opening last March, or whenever we did the opening. I just walked around with my camera, snapped a few pictures, and the bed is basically rotted out. The rear corner just supports the tailgate operations and/or keeps the wall from flopping out. This is the blade that he goes out plowing with last winter. Front wing blade, wing blade. And I think this is another truck wing blade, which I think was T8 or T6, I can't remember which one, in the interior. So these are basically at the end of the useful life, as a sander, as a body for hauling material, or for plowing. And Benji, I'll let you speak to this. It's not uncommon for you to have 4 or 5 trucks down when you try to send them out or get them repaired. So again, this gets down to the issue of, it's not only a pain to get these things going. Everybody, when it snows, has got a plow, including mechanics, right? And you probably, right? And so as soon as the first truck doesn't work, or breaks down, or something happens, it's like it'd be unfair to the Chinese and the firemen by calling it a Chinese fire drill, but it is an issue that you don't have people out there, what you're paying them for, you have them qualified for driving heavy machinery. They're not doing that, okay? So basically you have a service impact. Some people's aren't gonna get plowed. Some people aren't gonna be plowed at repeating enough, like every 3 or 4 hours that Benji's objective is. It may take 12 hours to get somebody replowed, especially when a storm's going through. So this is the question of, you have an operating budget, you're trying to, squeeze the last dime out of it to be efficient. At the same time, we're asking people that we pay money out of the operating budget to be efficient when you give them vehicles that can't allow them to be efficient. So it's sort of a roulette. You're not sure which one's not going to make it. And there are some vehicles which you would think, based on their nameplate, that would be very highly reliable. Volvos. Some of those have camshaft problems with electric engine controls, and a lot of people don't work on them anymore because they're such a pain.
They're getting to be a big problem with parts.
Less people are becoming trained on them. Nobody wants to do it. So not only you might have a vehicle that you would want to keep for another 2 or 3 years, but it may not be reliable enough because of the inherent nature of it versus it rusting out. Okay, so just to go down the list here are all the vehicles on page 22. We're choosing T6 this year. And then you will see on page 23, so sort of the list of all of his equipment, the second page. And the bottom is sort of Benji's notional replacement schedule. And what I'd like to show you is on page 24. You can see the 6 years, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Those 6 years, no large vehicle truck was replaced. So that basically means that 7 years after the last vehicle, we bought one T2 replacement in 2015. So we've got to go through a whole process of replacing trucks, at least to get to, I think it's 2027, to have done all the truck replacements. So it isn't like we can not buy this truck this year and then we won't have another truck next year. Just based on the status of the equipment, we're going to be in the business of buying trucks for a while. So I just want to make sure everybody kind of understands that. If Benji had his druthers, he'd probably say he needs to have 4 trucks this year to be reliable, but that's not practical, at least financially practical. So again, some of the good decisions, I'm not being wise, some of the prudent decisions were taken in the past. We're stuck with them, sort of victims to them now in terms of able to be efficient and provide the service, meaning plowing roads, not to mention the product, rebuilding roads in the summertime. And also the last one here is sort of like transfer station stuff. Just showing you, and I think in the next year or two you're going to have to buy another trailer. So, now, any questions on that before I go to the roads, which is the real money? Even though it says road reconstruction, there's really an underlying piece called road preservation and road reconstruction. So let me explain that. First of all, before everybody sees the price tag, $278,320 gets a grant paid to the town of Weare because of the population and because of the number of miles of road. It comes back from the redistribution of, every time you go and stick your fuel pump in your car, you're pumping gas, you're paying into a tax for the state. They redistribute that money, no matter where it was collected, back to the towns, and this is the equation up top, down below, the apportionment. So, because of length of the roads, number of roads, length of the roads, type of roads, and number of people in the town, we wind up having $278,000. So we get that whether we put any money into it or not. That's the way that works, okay? But when we talk about dollars, we talk about what the town will raise and what the state would kick in. So it's not above that. Page 29. You wonder why we got road problems these days. Well, it kind of goes this way. When Johnny and I I won't say it for Sherry because I don't want to connect her with how old I am, so.
Thank you.
But when we were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s here, some of us were anyway, there was almost no subdivisions. And most of the old town roads were literally just way for people that live on those roads to get to and from the state highways. Then something happened in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, where most of those roads were just little country roads and now become communal roads. Perfect example of that is Mountain Road and Mountain School Road. That used to be a dirt road, sometimes unpassable in the springtime.
That was dirt in 1970, I believe.
Right. So not only did they upgrade that road, but there are huge, well, I said huge, but the town of Weare is huge, subdivisions out there. You could do Bogue Road, you could do Bartlett, you could do Lorden, you could do Abbey, you could do Etter, and I think there's a little one called Balch Hill. These roads are all built, I'm thinking sometimes in the 80s. Maybe some of them actually started in the late 70s. But even if those roads were built to the town of Weare spec, and I say if they were built to the town of Weare spec, the town of Weare spec probably wasn't that well engineered. It was best practice at the time. And if it was, it may not have been actually inspected to it. So you wound up with what the town accepted, and these roads are all accepted, I mentioned. So it's been 30 plus years, and some of these are in terrible shape, and the ones you talked about tonight, Bogue Road. I mean, of the 20 things that can happen to a road over time, Bogue Road's got them all. I mean, everything, whether it's the shoulders, the fill areas sloping off, it's sliding down the hill if the cut wasn't made properly, or even the quality of the gravel hauled in. Gravel these days has to be a certain specification, needs to be crushed, and needs to have sharp edges and not round stone. And when you make asphalt, you need to have it crushed, and basically the recipe needs to be maintained by having it clean, not having other particles in there. Whereas a lot of places use round stone, sifted out of a bank for their asphalt. So there's a whole issue of problems. I just want to make a point. When people start wondering, why do we have a big bill for rebuilding these roads? In this whole package, we're not asking, except maybe, you could argue that maybe the architectural expenses for the Parks and Recs, but I suggest that the town of Weare hasn't done a lot in any ball fields over the years, and we may be over the limit for what we can, not so much afford, but what we delivered for the town services. These are all replacements. These are not additional vehicles. Whether it's a boat, a truck, or a car, or SUV, or whatever it is, or even the roads. We are not asking to build more of any. We're asking to rebuild or refit, because the stuff we have is not fit for purpose. So just to make that underscore. So it isn't like if somebody says we're buying more cars. Well, no, we're replacing cars, replacing trucks, replacing roads. So number of roads in the town of Weare, as Benji and I understood, that this changes as we really go over the roads and make the list. So there's 3 state highways in the town of Weare. It's like 14 miles. 57 town-maintained roads, that is Class 5, which is asphalt and dirt. There's private and Class 6 roads of 67. That might actually go up because I've done an analysis of that. I just haven't updated it here because Benji and I haven't run the roads yet. And there's one Class 4, which is kind of unique, where it's Center Woods. Basically, you plow the winters and the state will fix the summers. And maybe Gould Road's a candidate for that, because that, again, and maybe Short Street. Those are the ones that go between two state highways, get a lot of traffic. Okay.
I like that deal.
Well, I mean, Benji says it may take us a lifetime to get it. But the point is, there is a lot of traffic that doesn't go between Weare, within Weare. It goes between New Boston and Goffstown, especially Gould Road. Short road coming off 149 goes across.
Yeah.
It's a candidate. It'll help us with reconstruction in the future. It wouldn't help us with the plowing, because that's our position.
Yeah.
So of the 157, 121 roads are Class 5 paved roads. Now, I know that because Benji and I rode around in his truck. He managed to get a device that measured feet, so he was able to measure the length, and we finally figured out, we got the maps, we finally covered them all. So we're not talking anything, for the most part, there is a little bit, but not for the most part. The costs I'm going to speak about, I'll point out where it is not. These Class 5 dirt roads, that's not anything to do with asphalt or reconstruction in this regard. I'll point it out. So, of the 121 miles of road, there's 77.05 miles. And then for the 36 dirt Class 5s, it's 20.16. We have not draconially measured those yet, but we're taking it off the existing survey that was done earlier. So we'll upgrade them in the future. Just so everybody kind of gets on the same page of what we mean on page 32. This is sort of what happens when you start at the bottom of the cake. Okay, when you lay out a road these days, generally speaking, you have to establish the grade, the subgrade, how the road goes, and you build it from there. So the first thing you do is take all the organic material off the top, take all the roots, large boulders, and you try to make it as smooth as possible in the way it wants to go. Then you compact 6 inches at the top, less any obstacles. This gets the base solid. You take a big rock out of the ground. You don't fill it with gravel. You fill it with material that's there. It gets the same compaction, so you don't have these dips and various other swales that happen. Then you have a sub-base of gravel. This is 3-, meaning that you take everything that comes out of a bank, gravel bank, run it through a crusher, and nothing comes out bigger than 3. 3 or minus. Sand, chips, whatever else. That's what, it's a minimum depth of 6 feet. Why I say minimum? You could have 20-foot depth if that's what it takes to build the grade up for the road. Move to the third level. Base course. This is 1.5 inches, so it's even finer. And it's 6 inches on top of the previous layer. This allows you to get a very consistent layer, so you can basically massage the road into the profile you want. Okay? Then you lay a base course, binder course of asphalt, 2 inches for our road spec. And basically, that goes right on top, so you don't really do any grading. It's where it was when you left with the gravel. And then you put, and this, sometimes Benji does this, where rather than put the second layer on top, he'll give it a winter. So that things sag and settle over the night. And then you can fix that before you, and when you do that, or even if you do it in the same year, you apply a liquid asphalt called tack. That basically bonds the 2 layers together. And sometimes you'll see where that's failed on highways where all of a sudden be like a 1-inch strip taken out. That's because the tack failed and the top layer blew off. Just so we can all understand, the trade name for asphalt, black stuff that's sticky and stinks that goes on the road, that's really called asphalt concrete. The same as concrete is Portland concrete for the most part. We pour foundations. The difference is this is derived from asphalt as opposed to Portland cement. And basically, we talk about a cubic yard, a ton, whatever you want to say, of asphalt. 5% is that sticky black stuff. Then depending on the mix specified by the engineer, you have a large aggregate and a small aggregate, which is typically fractured stone and or sharp sand, so it grips and binds and packs well. It doesn't roll over each other like the round aggregate would. That's 99%. So we talk about asphalt, we really mean asphalt concrete. Some of the roads, 121. Now, let me explain how we did this. This is sort of what it is. You go to the next page, 35. Benji and I was a scribe. I don't know anything. Benji's a subject matter expert. He's the guy we hire to do the roads. So he instrumented his truck with a device that would measure feet as we drove along. So we started out, we always start out, and I don't want everybody to look ahead, but I will say that. If you go on an eye chart, page 42, 43, and 44 are all the 121 roads broken out in segments. And what I mean by that is you start at a point, a starting point, like for instance River Road is 8.5 miles long. We started at, I believe it was 77, intersection of 77 and River Road. And we started driving south. Benji would declare the status of the road when we started, and when it changed, we would stop. I would record the length and what he decided on. Then we start again and decide what that is and go until we found another. We found that there were 7 distinct segments on River Road. A lot of roads have 1, maybe 2, except for some longer roads. So just so we all understand, of the 121 roads, there was more than 121 segments, okay? So going back to page
35.
35.
34. So if you took the total 77 miles of the town road, these are segments, okay, not roads. These are the segments on those roads. 11% is, or 8.3 miles is red. That means basically you got to reconstruct the road. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But doesn't mean you can go and put some more tar on top. It means it's because the subbase is totally junk or whatever. It's beyond just putting another coat of paint on it, if you will. If you go to the next one on the cheese wheel here to the right or clockwise, there's 15 miles, 0.8, which is 20% of the roads. We call this yellow 1 to 3. Within 1 to 3 years, these roads will probably be red. They're on the edge. We got a lot of them just on the edge. We're catching this before they become a disaster. Moving along, you'd find that there are some roads, 18.1 miles of road, 24%, are 4 to 6. 4 to 6 years, they'll turn red. And then we go to the last one of the yellows, the pale yellow, 12.5, 7 to 9. And then we have green roads which require nothing. Those are the ones that have basically been done recently or accepted a new road in the town. So this is the basis for the estimate. Now, is it possible that Benji's fallible? Yeah. I suggest he could be over or under. So it might be just about right on average. So. The next level, the next page 35, shows the arrow with time going by. So if you did nothing to any of these green roads, over time they would just fall apart and basically become like Boat Road. The question here is, these are sort of the descriptions that we saw on the roads that led Benji to classify these. So these types of narratives of what it means. And then down below, it shows what can be done to bring these up to a satisfactory green level. Basically, yellow 9 and 3 shows either the top cap, the Weare cap, the 1 inch, is starting to alligator or crocodile, reptilian skin view of it. It starts making little cracks. The degree which it cracks takes it down to yellow 6 and then yellow 3. When you start seeing green things growing through the road, grass, little trees, whatever it is, basically means that not only is the top wear level failed, but also the bottom 2 inch binder level has failed as well. The problem with that is, a lot of our roads weren't designed to be well drained. A lot of times, you'd want to have the bottom of the, well, at least a minimum of the bottom of the 6-inch material. That's the course above the subgrade. You'd want that to at least be above the water line on the ditches. That keeps the water out from underneath the asphalt, which prevents it from having any moisture there and heaving up during the winter. The problem is that if you don't have that, and you start getting water under the base, if it doesn't go down through, it'll basically be pooled underneath it. Once you start getting those holes in the road or the cracking, that allows water to go down to 1 level or 2. And if it even gets down to the first level of the wear cap, there is so much hydraulic pressure with a wheel driving over that 35 miles an hour. It just blows the water out. So much pressure. So you're actually blowing the asphalt out. And over time, that's what the pothole is. And over time, you blew all the asphalt out, now you're into the gravel. And that's why you have deep potholes. So the way to stop that is by having the top course, if the road is properly designed, and having a wear cap watertight is the appropriate thing. So this is sort of how we came across it, and the bottom is sort of where we came up with this. If you have to reconstruct on average, and the term is on average because a mile of road will take a mile of 3-inch thick. We know that. That's $150,000. It's a chart later. The part that difference is how much you have to build the road up so it's above the water line, keep the base dry, and maybe there's also how many culverts are on it and how much guardrails and such. So Benji looked back, and as we've always said, it's $200,000 to do a road, a mile of road. So after he went and looked back on the cost of his constructions, he brought that up to $225, and that's consistent of what they told Bogue Road was going to be. That's around $275 because they have slightly over more than a mile, correct? So if you are in a red situation to rebuild that section of that road, it's on average $225,000 a mile. If you're on yellow 9 or yellow 6, that is 1.5 inch of shim and overlay. That means you put 1.5 inches of asphalt, the width of the road, 1 mile long. That's 1,156 tons of asphalt to do that. It's $60, $65 a ton. We assume $65 for a ton of asphalt. And this requires nothing other than flagmen from Benji. They come in with their trucks, they come in with their equipment, with their people, and they lay out a mile. And that price is based on at least getting 1,000 yards in a day to amortize the cost of moving their people, right? And equipment. So this is the basis for coming up with these numbers. So over the next sheet here, you'll see what I was saying. 1.5 inch shim and overlay, $75,000 per mile. If it's 1 inch, $100,000. If it's a mile of construction, it's $225,000. And then if you look at the cost distribution where that money would go, for the red roads, the yellow 1 through 3, yellow 4, that's 4 through 6, or 7 through 8, this is where the money would be spent. And the total cost of that whole exercise is on your page 44, $7.6 million to do. Page 37 is $7.6 million. And that's an aggregation of all those little pieces of 120 road pieces. Roads, 121 roads with all the little pieces sums up to this based on this cost estimate. And these are current cost estimates, correct? So, if you look at this, now this gets to be a little complicated only because there's a lot of detail here. First of all, I'd say that right now in 2018, last year, or this year's money to be spent, We raised $480,000, of which the state kicks in $278. Okay? That's the tax base right now, the tax rate. So there's no increase. This is an example for this year. So that's the baseline of 480. So if you went to, let's say you want to raise $650,000 a year. Well, how long would it take to do this based on the work we got in front of us? Assuming no other road goes worse than they are now, which is another issue. For us to pay for the additional money of going from 480 to 650, $170,000, that's 19 cents per thousand, or 48.26 on a $254,000 house average. Let's suggest you wanted to try and close that gap, because it would take 18.64 years to do 480. It would take 13.6 years to close at 650. And by the way, those green roads, in 10 years, some of those are going to be red. So time marches on. So what we picked for this year, for a starting point, and I recognize that the select board set the warrant articles and what they wish to put on the warrant articles. The CIP is recommending $750, and there's two flavors, not to be confused, but rather than picking $750 seemed like a good position to be in, 11.22 years versus $850. Here are the tax impacts for those options, just so it's laid out, and this is based on the $866 million for the complete tax base of the town of Weare. So every dollar is $866,000 for a dollar on tax. So given this, that we picked this, 750 is sort of the sweet spot for coming forward with a recommendation this year. That supports Benji's request. Go to the next page. There are two options to look at here, and this is where it comes down to a practical level and a financial level. Let's suggest you were acclimated to the 750, $270,000 over what it was last year. You can basically say, we're going to raise $750 a year. Well, you really don't get $750. What you end up getting is this. I think it's the further slide. Maybe it's on this slide. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go back to 38. You really don't get the $750 to put directly in the road reconstruction. Part of that is, part of the 480 this year is $30,000 for crushing for dirt roads. That's basically all the dirt roads, the 36 dirt roads in the town of Weare. This is what practically happens. This is why dirt roads kind of don't make a lot of sense to most people. Some it does. Well, what do? In the winter, in the fall time, when you go out plowing, what happens? You plow most of the dirt into the ditch. Okay? So then what happens in the springtime when it starts to thaw and you still have a snowstorm? You plow more into the ditch. What do you do during the summertime? You go out there and dig the ditch. Not all of it goes back on the road, so you need some material to rebuild the road, the crown and the shape of the road. That's what this $30,000 for. And then in the summertime, when it's awful dry and dusty, dirt road should get calcium chloride. So this is the $40,000. So you really take the 480, subtract 43. So what you really got now is just the balance of that, which is that's 437. So now you start out with 437. You say, well, there's one more piece left, and some of that is road preservation. And Benji started a program this year. He did a beta test, if you will, Hodgson Road. Do a shim and lane. When I was a kid, I used to run down the road with this oil truck with a bunch of spouts in it, spewed oil, and they back up behind it with a sander and sand it to seal up the cracks. We haven't been doing a lot of that. So $30,000 would basically do a mile. So Benji's coming up with a plan to take those green roads that are on the edge of becoming yellow and starting the journey on the yellow, and actually putting a top coat of asphalt, especially formulated these days, and they put a chip coating, which is a form of sand. It's actually chips. And that's the wear coat on top of the asphalt. It's a liquid asphalt. It looks like oil being poured on it. Thin layer, and then they put the chips to seal it up. That will hopefully extend the life of the green roads in the future, until they have to have 1.5 inch of asphalt put on. So that brings you down to 480. So you start out with 480, now you're down to 408. So you don't have the whole amount. So when you look over here for the 750, you only got 678 actually does the road reconstruction aspect. So even if you got 750, you really don't have the 750. Just want to make that a point. And that's where you get the math for the 11.22 years. Now, one of the things we recommend is moving the crushing, which is the annual expense, and the calcium chloride annual expense from the capital stuff into the operating budget. That's just a transfer over, okay? Until we do that, we still show it as 750. Okay, just, that was probably a confusing piece. But, so, I went up to page 39. There's two options. Just say for purpose of discussion, it's a 750. You could do 750, and every year you get 750. The problem is, it's going to take you to get that $650,000 worth of usable road reconstruction. It's going to take you 3 years to get through the reds. Guess what happens? Some of them yellows are going to be red. So you'll never catch up. There's always this avalanche of degrading roads in front of you. So one of the ways to do this is to say, we'll raise $500,000 a year, and that $250 that we can only get every year, that piece, we request bonding $2.5 million for 10 years. So that $2.5 million is broken up into $250K for 10 years. Get it all in the first 2 years. And you're able to buy down the risk of these roads that will never get done in time, like the Y. Some of the Y3s can possibly be shim overlaid on. And certainly the yellows, 6s, and 9s, and 4s and 4s and 6s. So it's a game of how fast you can get the money. And the problem is, it isn't like you can buy a bunch of asphalt and have it sitting over at the town garage. It doesn't work that way. You buy it the year you want it, you contract it in advance, and they deliver it, they install it on site with their equipment, their people. So you could basically buy enough asphalt in year 2019, probably more like 2020, because it's going to take a while for the logistics of the bonding. So you probably won't be able to spend that money or get charged for it until 2020. What you can do is line up the jobs, do the pre-work like culverts or whatever needs to be done on these roads, or the yellow 6 or yellow 9s, and do a majority of those, which freezes those as being green roads for another 10, 15, 20 years, and not have to deal with those. If you only got the $250 every year to go and do that work to fix those in the head, you're never going to catch up. Now Benji, because of the number of 11 trucks, 11 guys, number of months when he's not doing dirt roads maintenance, you can only spend roughly 2 miles of road, I'll say $500,000 a year, without having to subcontract it out. So his equipment, and when I say this 750, I don't mean buying new equipment, buying more labor. That's all operating cost. Buying any fuel, that's all in the tires, that's all in the operating costs. We're only buying material. Asphalt, which is the principal piece. Gravel, the next one. Grinding of roads, culverts, and guardrails. So there's no labor in this 750. There's no repair parts or anything. That's all done on the road reconstruction. That's all done in the operating budget. So we're talking about raising enough money to buy the materials, and Benji can basically do 2 miles of road, because the biggest cost of that 2 miles of road is the 3 inches of asphalt. That's $150,000 per mile per road. So he can basically do $300,000 worth of asphalt To do that, he's got to prepare the bed, buy more material to prepare the bed. He's got to come in and grind the road, traditionally. This gigantic cultivator or rototiller on steroids comes in and just literally grinds it, pulverizes whatever asphalt's there. That becomes the bed, buys more material to build, the grade up, and then call in the asphalt companies. The majority of that money for rebuilding those roads, $500,000, $300 is just buying the asphalt. So, there's an option here, whether, and this becomes your ability to sell this at town meeting and the ability for people to vote yes for it at town meeting. I mean, the safest bet is do what you can with a $750 each year, which really isn't $750 when you take the other numbers away from it. The best case, in my view, if I was if I was going before the board of directors and recommending option 1, somebody figured out option 2 wasn't available, I'd be thrown out. Or somebody came before me recommending this, and I figured out option 2. I throw them out because they're not up for, the best case for the town is option 2. The hardest case for the town to sell is option 2 because it's a bond. We don't do well getting bonds done for anything, with the exception of the school over here. Somehow that went through the first year. Usually it's 5 years for a building, 6 years for a building, 7 years for a building, whatever. So, and the bond cost, everybody's worried about interest, 1.875%. Now, what that does is allows you to buy roughly $2.5 million worth of asphalt in year 1. Let's call that 2020, when we get the bond. Fix up these roads and be done with them, rather than try to scrape enough away from the 700 each year, the 250. And by the time you get going on that, you're never going to catch up and fix those roads. This allows you to do, option 2 allows you basically to spend no more money than you would over 10 years, except for the interest. And that's like 3 cents a year on 2020 per thousand. So it allows you to basically buy the asphalt. Why is it beneficial to buy the asphalt in their term? Anything short of a war in the Middle East, asphalt's going to be a huge cost because 2 things: potential war or disruption of the international price of oil, or if the infrastructure project comes through under this next 2 years in Washington, D.C. Asphalt is a derived product. What I mean by that is you buy a barrel of oil. It has this whole mixture of things that look black. You got to pull your gasolines out. You got to pull your light, your heavy gases, your light, meaning gaseous. Then your gasolines and your oils, your diesel, kerosenes, your oils, and down your heavier oils for a motor. And then you're all done and left with the really heavy heating oils. You got this sludge on the bottom. It's called asphalt. It's only a fraction of the barrel. You don't refine oil to get asphalt. It's a byproduct. So you only get as much produced as what's oil demanded. Because nobody's going to pour gasoline on the ground because they want the asphalt. It has to be purchased. So as demand for that goes up for infrastructure in the country, could be a significant pressure on the price of asphalt. About 50% of the price of asphalt, 65 cents, $65 per ton, $20 to $30 of that is the price of that 5% asphalt. So there's a huge leverage pushing on the price. The crushed rock will go up because of diesel for trucking it around and for crushing and all that stuff. So again, the most logical thing we do option 2, but I don't know as if we can get it necessarily passed with a bond. So I don't know the magic of how you word these options into your warrant articles, so you're just going to have to place your bet and hope for the best. Option 2 saves you money. You may not be, it will show that a third of the asphalt purchased over 10 years will be locked price for year 2. And you're paying for it that year 2 price for the next 8 years on the bond. This is probably the hardest thing. It took us a while to get these slides because we want to make sure it was logical and, I'm happy to come back if you need something. examples of possible priorities, and the word possible, because Benji doesn't want to get beat up if he didn't pick a right one. So I made this list up, so which is probably isn't right, so you can blame me. But
Critical roads would go under the 500,000 road reconstruction dollars.
Correct.
It would come out of the 200.
correct. But what I'm saying is, a lot of roads we recognized as a kid that were there are now commuter roads. I mean, River, Reservoir, Mountain School, Sugar Hill, Flanders, Thorndike, all these roads connect other roads from subdivisions. Critical roads are these budding disasters that we have. Anybody gone up to Wallingford Terrace?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes Bogor look pretty good. So, Low Road is pretty bad from the standpoint of washboard. It's not a flat road at all. It's just
Washed
whatever
out.
was underneath the, when you put a poor base down and you asphalt over time, the discontinuities in the base are evident on the surface of the road. Edna Lane is another one. You could put Bartlett on these. I mean, this list would never end. So, recommendations. Move administratively, maybe with a lot of yelling and screaming, but move the crushing of dirt, well, these are actually backwards. It should be 12 on the bottom and 30 on the top. Or we should change the titles, actually. The top crushing of gravel should be the 30 down below. So swap these two, something we'd missed. So it's a 1 penny per thousand for doing calcium chloride. And it's 4 cents, probably 3.7 cents, I think it was, but 4 cents per thousand for doing the gravel crushing. This is the town of Ware's gravel. We run through and crush it to, was it 3/4 minus? Thereabouts?
3/4, 1 inch kind of different pile.
So there's an administrative change, and then there's two options, A and B. I got a small vote. I vote for B, for 2, the second option. Makes sense because he can only spend, why wouldn't you bond more? It wouldn't make practical sense. You can't stockpile asphalt. You'd only buy in a block 2.5 million worth of asphalt to put down in a year or a year and a half, whatever it takes, up front. It wouldn't make any sense to bond the money for the yearly 500,000 because you can't spend it. Why pay interest on money you can't spend? So, and then you got these 42, 43, 44, and they're all, I guess this was better when it was colored, but we have page 45 and 46. 45 is option 1, which we took for 2019. We listed all the expenses. We netted out all the offset revenues. That could be from the state, that could be for the ambulance, that could be capital reserves that have a balance in them. And what we're asking this year is $1.193 million for the capital. And this also includes the prior year's debt service on the $155,000 for the building, and I guess it's the final payment of the grader lease. So that's the difference between the 1.1 and the 1.38, 1.02 on the front page I talked about, and 1.38 here. And then the second page is basically the same thing, except it takes in consideration the option 2 for bonding, the 2.5 million. So we would raise 7.5 for the first year, and I'm not an expert on bonds, I'll defer to Jan, but we wouldn't be able to get, if we passed in March to accept the bond, we wouldn't get the money for the bond till end or the beginning of 2020 in our fingers. We wouldn't be able to buy anything for 2019. So,
You should.
when do you think we can get the money?
Well, if you actually bond it and do your bond issue, well, I'm assuming it'll be through maybe the bond bank or through TD or.
When's the
a
quickest we
bank.
can get our fingers on the money?
If it
As soon as
passes.
it's passed.
When is that gonna be? This is what we're into.
March.
If it
If it
passes.
passes
in
at
March.
town meeting,
Yeah, how long?
You get it automatically? I can go-
Well, I think
you can
within
have
9
it
What's that
days.
delay?
there's no, a month at the most.
Okay. That's a lot quicker than anybody else thought.
Why would you have to wait?
I'm not into the bond business, so I don't know.
No, was there a reason given, or was it?
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't say anything.
Well, if you think you can have it by May,
Sure.
then there's a good possibility Benji can hopefully contract, if they ain't already overly prescribed, for 2019, start laying some of that asphalt down. We were thinking it'd be like in September, and you're not gonna lay any asphalt in September.
Well, you can
No,
lay it
I
as long
believe
as
you
you get
can
it down
have
in
it by May.
September.
What's that?
I believe you
Done
can have
before
it by
November.
May.
First of
Okay,
November.
then there's a possibility some of
I mean,
that
they're
could be
still laying
spent
now.
in 2019.
Oh,
The point, this was
No, I wouldn't
assuming we
consider doing
couldn't
that.
spend the 2.5 million in 2019, any part of it. That's why we put 7.5 here.
Okay.
This may be unrealistic assumption of ours. So that would basically make that 500. If people feel confident we can get some of that 2.5 spent by having asphalt applied in 2019, then we would raise 500,000 and we'd have the money in to lay down the asphalt. If, for whatever reason, based on our assumptions, we couldn't get it, we would raise 750 by taxation, and then only start taking the 500,000 by taxation and having a bond in 2020. Be able to spend it. It isn't, if it comes October 1st, we're not gonna be laying down any asphalt, probably. So you're gonna be hanging on to it till the next year. So, I don't know what the art of the possible is. Maybe somebody needs to run the trap line on that, and so we can bet what we're gonna do in
I mean, there's two ways of going, like I said, the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. Now, they go out generally twice a year. I believe they go out in June, but they can also do a bond anticipation note so that you could have the money beforehand if it's been approved, and then pay that back
Okay.
with the bond. But let me check into all of it for you. But if it's with the bank, and, I mean, you'd have to get the paperwork moving right now, is what
All
we
I'm
have to do.
saying is, until you take the vote, would you do the paperwork?
Yes, you can do the paperwork ahead, and then they have it all set up, and it would be a go to sell it only if it passes.
There's one thing I'm absolutely sure about.
Yes.
I won't be doing that. So,
I-
this is sort of, yeah,
That's above your pay grade.
well, and my amusement or whatever. So, what I'm saying is, this is the best we have to go on.
Right.
And these are the options.
Yeah.
If something changes because of the temporal nature of getting this done, then put 500 in there. If you can start spending money reasonably, some of that 2.5 in 2019. But if there's any issue, we assume worst case, which is 2020. You probably get it in the spring of 2020 and then be in a position, by that time, you could line up his contracts and everything else. So those are the details that I don't really have any stuff on. So any questions on these last two pages? Because this is the kind of the whiteboard pages up front, and the last two pages here are the only ones that really matter, as far as I'm concerned. Everything else is
Sheets of
information.
paper, You're right.
Everything else is information.
Conversation.
So,
Does the board have any questions of Jack?
or anything else we need to do, because I think we're done as a CIP for this year. Not that I'm not unwilling to help, but I just, from a committee perspective, I think we're done. I just thank all the committee members and the town support staff.
I'm gonna reach out to the finance committee for questions, but only specific to the night you guys getting
Well,
the
I was
presentation a
gonna
couple
say, they're
nights.
getting it next
You guys gonna
Wednesday.
get your presentation in a couple nights. If you have anything specific for Jack tonight?
I think we'll wait until
Okay.
Thursday night.
Okay.
Two
I
nights.
appreciate that.
Wednesday night,
That's
but
very
we'll
good.
have a circus then, so.
Throw the offer then, so,
But thank
okay.
you.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Jack.
You're welcome. And thank you to the department heads. Benji put a lot of time, and the other ones too, put a lot of time in supporting the actual meetings, and also the endless questions and questions that we would ask and follow up. And, gee, we got a mistake here. So, thank you very much.
Ben, you got time for 2 questions? One's a really easy one. Second one, a little more involved.
I like the easy ones.
Are you done?
The first one is.
You gonna say something I didn't say?
No,
No.
You gonna change the mind?
no, I don't think anything to do with this,
No.
right?
First one, are we at full staff?
Other than my, excuse me, my part-timer.
Okay. And secondly, I'm not, it's just a question for, I guess, wondering minds. We have, obviously, trucks that need replacement. There's no doubt about that. Has it ever been explored of hiring out for winter plowing?
Not by me.
Okay. I didn't know if that was ever an option that was wondered or not.
I don't know what we'd benefit from it.
Okay. I'm just saying if we weren't kind of like a full staff,
We're at full staff.
if we weren't
Yeah.
per se, then, well, one person position, one truck type thing could, I don't want to say fall off, but, you know, during the summer, obviously, all hands on deck. I'm just thinking that winter is really, the time to shine.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just didn't know if that was ever explored or not.
I don't know if anybody else has. I'm not interested in it.
Okay. All right. Just a thought.
And the idea of the part-timer is so that they can keep Tom fixing.
Tom fixing trucks.
Fixing.
Right now,
Oh,
Tom
absolutely.
has a plower.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
So-
No, he definitely.
I've been
needs to
doing
show.
it lately because he's been in the shop, so.
Yeah, yeah. So-
No, I mean, you get, you have the problem reliability
Yeah.
with hired, I owned a hired truck, so I know all about it.
Okay.
Get somebody show up on Christmas. They're the junk trucks that ourselves and the state sells.
Mhm.
No one buys good, reliable trucks, so I'm not really interested in
Okay.
even entertaining one. I mean, if you guys tell me I have to, I have to, but
No, just a question, that's all.
thank you.
That's all. All right, thanks, Benji.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Jack. Okay. Up next, we'll have a joint conversation with the Conservation Commission. Recognize Andy Bolt.
Hi, Rick. Yeah, I think
I don't think so either. How's it going?
meet you.
Yes.
Hi, hi.
Yep.
Okay, so, we've had a couple of, what do we want to talk about first? Do we want to talk the easements, or?
Let's
I
start
know
off
that was-
with forestry services.
Okay.
Keeping the work going in our town forest to renew our plan, stay on plan. And our concern comes out of a discussion about the town purchasing policy. And, asked Vice Chairman Steve Major to join in the conversation. He's spoken with you guys before, and this is sort of a continuation of that. But bottom line is, we as a Conservation Commission have a relationship with a professional forester who helps us manage the town forest. That's both the maintenance, including harvest, and as well as the planning. And those are services, in our view, that are very similar to engineering services or hydrogeologist services. I work in the hydrogeology realm. People carry their credentials with them. They're certified in their profession, and through the years, they get to know the town, get to know the town forest, get to know the stakeholders in the town forest, and there's value in that ongoing relationship. So we're trying to understand the purchasing policy, trying to abide by that. And as we look at it, it seems like a designation or an exemption of forestry services would be in keeping with the spirit of the policy. So we want to have that discussion. Chairman Hippler, I should also let you know that we have Mr. Camacho here, who's also part of our commission. As you know, Ms. Burdick sits in with us also. So It's 4 members are here. This is an official
Yeah,
meeting of the.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, and Lori, you're right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So 5 of our 6 members are present, and this is an opportunity for us to conduct fully noticed business and make decisions on behalf of the town.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I think what really, you know, I mean, you know, we don't, I don't think the Board of Selectmen at any time discredits the, you know, what the town forester has been doing as far as work in relations as far as that. What we did, you know, what we're tasked to do is obviously look at the budget, look at numbers, and keep everybody on an even playing field. And that's, you know, that's where I think that we, you know, when Selectman Osborne saw the gate cost, you know, that right there to us, you know, looking at the picture of the gate and the cost for it, kind of flagged us to, you know, what's going on. And please don't think that we think you guys are doing anything on hand, because we know you're not. We've never thought that. At least I have not, anyways. But at that point, that particular item, you know, was like, why didn't that go as in the purchasing policy? Why didn't that follow the purchasing policy?
And let me state first off on that, thank you for the thoughtful interaction with that. That doesn't always happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's better for the town than you folks. And John, thank you for you know, speaking up about something you saw and being interested and taking the time to review things that revealed that to you. If there's a way we can provide information to you that makes that easier for you, we want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys, you know, really set the pace for what the town's doing, and we appreciate that. And in no way do we view these funds as anything other than public funds that we are entrusted to get the most out of that we can, just as any other funds. They generate through a different mechanism than many other funds, but you know, absolutely, they are public funds that need to be managed well, and we try to get the most out of them that we can. In hindsight, I think we've all spoken about that as a commission, and those sort of one-off capital items perhaps should be approached differently.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the result would have been different, I don't know. In my view, there were a lot of problems, history and difficulty with gates down at that location, and as we were kind of marching forward, it didn't occur to me, well, you know, maybe we need to step back and do a broader canvassing of entities to design, construct, and install that. But it's certainly not a typical Woodlands gate, and that, in my view, was because it's been such a problem area through the decades with folks destroying gates back there. And there were other services that went along with that, that were in tandem, so it kind of linked to different things. But the point is taken. You know, that's a capital purchase, and we want to make sure we're getting the most for our dollar out of any funds that we are entrusted with.
Well, I think too, that's what brought the fact that we don't see like a bid going out. We have other areas, like we do the radios for the PD and the fire department. We usually put out a bid for that. It's like a 3-year bid. Same thing with the computers. We do that. We do the assessing. I mean, these are all, the assessing is...
At the end of the day, you may end up with the same person. We don't always
Right.
do the cheapest.
We always,
It goes
but
with what's best.
Exactly. We try to, do what's best for the town, and to see if there's another
Please do.
forester or whatever.
I'll let Steve speak to that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
So I want to go back with a little history on this, because I don't think we've got the whole picture. In 2007, we went out on a request for proposal, and it was answered by, I want to say, at least 4 or 5 different forestry companies. The only one, that we went through a selection process, and looking at the town's rules, that's probably, parallel to that process with the request for proposal. Bidding would be absolutely the wrong term. There's no way we're ever going to be able to bid this.
Oh,
So, what it boiled down to, all these foresters are pretty close on their prices. Meadowson Timberlands was the only one that was fully responsive. And
We have some email traffic from Fred Francesco that said the Board of Selectmen were supposed to sign that contract. I don't know if Naomi got a chance to go looking for it in the files, and Meadowsend, for some reason, didn't have a copy, and it never went via email that I could tell, at least I didn't get CC'd. So that's how we selected them. So we're on about 10 years now. So even if we did go out on a request for proposal and you kind of dictated that direction, we'd need to go like really long-term, and that's going to be, hard to do that. I checked with Town Amherst is a very active forestry program. They did a very similar thing to us. They went out, they found a company, and they've stuck with it. We, looking at, I talked to Laura a little bit, Laura Spector Morgan, just about how these things get structured, and I guess like their contract, they can go up anytime they want. I don't know that we ever recompete that one. So I think, we're kind of looking specifically at the forestry services. Now, the gate was a different story. And the other caveat, and I told you guys this last time that I was in here, is that Fred had told us, maybe wrongly, that not to worry about the town purchasing policy with the town forest and the town conservation account. So something like a gate, that's, if you have a design and you put it out for a bid, pretty easy. But when you get into complexities like forest management and the different directions that can take, it gets a lot more difficult. So I think if we do need to get down that road, we're going to need some professional help, and I tried to reach out to Laura about that. They have she had an example from some other town. I've been trying to get from them, but our feeling as a commission, what we talked about is this really fits into the, that exempt status, and however you want to frame, what is exempt, as in, the actual forestry services, the management plans, the timber marking, the invasives, those are the kinds of things, invasive treatment, which is, spraying essentially. Those are the kinds of things that I think would be worthwhile exempting, kind of viewing them as a, They actually send us requests for proposals and then hourly for other things, like when they come to meetings and that sort of thing. I can tell you their hourly is, $65 an hour. That's not unreasonable for something that someone has a license that's professionally credentialed. So I don't think the town is, is really losing anything continuing the relationship with Meadowsend. So that's why we all firmly as a commission think that, in light of their extraordinary work over the last 10 years, there's absolutely no reason to change companies or go looking for another company. I personally, up in Maine, I have a parcel of land, was dealing with a forester, same hourly price, $65. So it's, there's no coincidence there. I think that difference is pretty narrow. And then you have to look at the services that you're able to get from that company. Meadowsend is on the medium size as far as scale goes, so they have just about everything you need. They have some technicians, they can do spraying, they can do timber cruising, GIS work. They've been really proactive about reaching out in Conservation Commission meetings, having public tours of timber harvest, and then and then working with Piscataquag Land Conservancy for those outreach opportunities. So they've actually served the town well. So, I think our request is pretty simple. I'd like you to consider adding it to the town exempt policy.
And I don't think, Steve, I don't think that this board is discrediting any work that Meadows has done. Obviously sometimes, we may not agree with the type of cut that was done. We may hear it on the other side from residents that, that the slash cut looks like, but again, that's a management style that maybe we don't all agree with, but, that the forester best sees fit. So I don't think, again, I don't think that we're discrediting any of the credentials that Meadowsend has, that Mr. Turner has, or anything like that. But we are 12 years into this program now. It's 2007.
Yeah, no, they started in 2008, so we're on 10.
So we're in 10 years.
So 10 years is up this year,
Right.
so.
Right.
Well, see, I don't know if we had a length on that thing. The agreement.
Contracts,
Right.
usually we don't go contracts much more than, 5 years,
Yeah.
and it's been over that. And, it's time to, and being stewards for the town funds, which ultimately comes to us, we should see an updated contract from these people.
We don't, well, the problem, I think the part you didn't catch, Jack, is that the actual Each project comes in as its own
Well, I
request for
mean,
proposal.
you're using them as a constant, you've got a, it's like having an attorney. It sounds like you've got them on retainer, so you've got a contract with them. So, I mean, at this point, you're putting a retainer to have these people constantly on call, then, you know, this should be an upgraded one. That's 10
Do
years.
we do that with Laura Spector? It's been the same 10 years
Yeah.
with Laura.
I mean, we do a lot of things that we go back and review all our legal costs, we review all this.
Have we recompeted that?
Yeah,
We have.
yeah, we go back there constantly. I mean, we go
We don't
over.
put it out to bid.
We don't put it out to bid, we contact these other attorneys. But I mean, that's
They
not
each
the.
have their specialty, though.
And they all have specialties. You have how many people doing forestry? We've got to look out for the best interests of the town. You calling Laura, I mean, that's fine, you calling her, but the problem is that that has nothing to do with the issue at hand. The issue at hand is a 10-year contract. It's time to have it brought forth, and we should rebid the contract, or we should be
There's no
getting
bid.
it updated.
There's no bid. There can't be a bid.
Then an RFP.
Right.
Yeah, that's
We
what
put
I
out
was
for
talking
engineering
about.
costs, it's the same thing. You put an RFP for an engineer that does town engineering, and you turn around and, okay, so we may have this engineer this time, 2 years down the road, we may get another engineer. We've been in trouble with doing contracts. We just got taken to court for contracts, for signing contracts. So, you know, this is something that has to be brought forth. This is money that's being expended out of the town coffers, one way or the other, and we should be updated on it. I'm not saying that this gentleman is not gonna get the contract again.
That's what you're missing out on, though, that part of it.
I don't
There's
think
a-
that it makes
Can you let me
exemption.
explain this to you just for a second? So, there's the initial agreement that was signed that really didn't do much of anything other than, hey, we selected you to be our town forester.
And who signed that, do you know, back then?
We can't
And
find it.
the emails from Fred Francesco, it looks like the Board of Selectmen. Yeah, we just, you know, just digging through my emails, I just went down in our files, we don't have it. And for some reason, Meadowsend doesn't have it. And Naomi, I don't know if she got a chance to
I
look or
didn't
not.
today.
So now what I was trying to tell you is that there's that agreement, but then for each project, there is a forestry services agreement that's specific to the project. So there's no carte blanche, just go do whatever you want.
So, in other words, what you're saying, we could hire a different forester for each project.
No, I would never do that.
So you're setting your sights on one forester, so we have an agreement with them. So I think
Well,
at some
no,
point for 10 years, we ought to see an updated contract.
Right, so here's the thing, if we do go out again, then we should, and I've asked Laura about this and haven't really heard back. She supposedly have an example, you know, I don't have the time or the knowledge. And
Well, I think
probably
at
the rest
that
of the-
point, you should probably go through Naomi to go to Laura.
Since when? We've always, we have a conservation budget, we've always dealt with her for environmental issues. This is a conservation
Well, I'm
issue.
saying in this instance, maybe you ought to have Naomi do the more research for us, because she's got more time.
No, Laura has the contract from another town.
Well, what I'm saying is we should get another updated contract
Okay.
from this gentleman. It's been over 10 years now.
So you're telling us 10 years is gonna be good? Because that's the problem.
No, I mean, usually we don't sign contracts for any more than 5, and we shouldn't be.
Right.
Can I just, how do we pay him?
Yeah.
Out of the town forest account.
Okay, so every year, you put an article on to pay him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you're asking us to sign something that we don't have approval for.
What are you talking about?
The approval you want for January of 19, we haven't gone to town meeting for 19's money yet.
What approval for January 19? We're talking about exempting this
No,
from the
you
buying.
sent,
That's
you
not for the
sent in a
contract.
contract to us to sign. You sent in a contract.
We didn't send a
I mean,
contract, and
I'm
they
sorry,
sent,
Meadows End Consulting sent in a contract.
they sent in a request for proposal to us, a forestry services agreement, excuse me, not a forestry services agreement for several land management plans. The ones you're referring to,
Okay.
for a couple parcels, right? Nobody's talked about that or agreed or anything. We told them hold off. So we could, you know, theoretically expend that this year, depending on how much balance is still available, right?
Okay.
That could be encumbered, if the commission voted at the next meeting to do that. Or that
You're
could go on
encumbering
next
what?
year's. What?
You're encumbering what?
No, if we were gonna execute that forestry services agreement, but we told them hold off.
Are you
to
talking 18 or 19?
18, if there's
Okay,
enough
so
money to cover that.
18,
Yeah,
the town voted
uh-huh,
to secure a contracted services with a licensed forester.
right.
So that meant a licensed forester. Did we RFP, I mean, I know.
This
you
has
guys-
been a continuation of the same thing that's been going on for 10
But you won
years.
that deliberative session when it got all changed around. It had
Nothing
discussion.
changed around. You still
Yes,
got
it did.
basically
The
the same
article
word.
got changed
No.
on the floor. It did.
That is what we're doing right there. I know
It
it
got changed on
yeah.
the floor.
Yeah, I know it got,
Right, because nobody was there to talk about it.
okay, but that's still what we're doing.
Okay.
So, my thought is though, is if we're gonna make a contract, now we use Meadows End as the, for better terms, liaison between the town of Weare and an actual person putting a chainsaw on the tree.
No, not at all. They're the town forester. So they're coming up with
The plans.
plans, inventories, consulting with other natural resources professionals like cooperative extension, wildlife biologists. Then they bring that all to us, and we had open and transparent processes when we made these plans, and this would be the same thing for the revisions. Then there's the part of if we implement something like a harvest or invasive species treatment or a prescribed burn, they go ahead and they implement that, and then they manage it. In the case of a harvest, they manage it. It's traditional in New Hampshire for a consulting forester, usually takes a percentage of the harvest. That's how they get paid for that. They get paid for the other stuff on a process where they're putting in, here's your quote, essentially. So that's how we've done that.
Now, how does the town of Weare cut a check to the town forester
Yes,
for services?
yes.
Approximately how much a year is it?
You
For
have
the
to go back
forester
Well, the
through.
alone.
warrant article says only 25.
Yeah, we
But
don't usually hit that.
But that was also for other things, as we were told later, is that 25,000 covered gate maintenance and et cetera. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, there were other things that came out. Yeah, absolutely. Town forest management.
But that 25 that's raised from taxation, there's more than just
No,
the
none of that's
forester.
raised from taxation.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
out of
that's
the town
out of
Comes out
forest.
of the town
Comes out of
account,
the
excuse me.
town forest.
Comes out of the town account.
Town forest.
But, okay. So, I guess what would be the harm in an RFP to further educate ourselves on the outside? Because to me, and let me finish, to me, using the same forester for 10 years has almost put blinders on. And what I mean by that is there any, I'm not saying that if we had 3 or 5 or 10 proposals in front of us for forester services, that we would choose any other one other than who we've been using because of the relations that they have. But how do we know if we don't ask and we don't get them?
That just doesn't seem to be the model, Rick. If you call some other towns, if you want to call some other towns, I'd encourage you to do it. Traditionally in Weare, we used Bob Todd for many, many years. Same kind of thing. There was a long-term relationship with Bob. In this case, why would you really go changing something that is competitive? And like Andy said, our forester now knows the land, so we've got this whole re-education. Maybe they want to take off in a different management direction. We've got some consistency. So sure, you can do that, but I'm telling you, 5 years is inadequate. I mean, you need to have an overarching agreement and then be able to implement projects as they come along, much like what we've been doing, even if we want to go out for a request for proposal. And that is why I'm saying that's so difficult and really need someone like a town attorney to formulate what that's going to look like. In the Air Force, I mean, I've seen that we have these massive contracts and they'll have things in there called CLINs, and I forget what that all means, but it's like, you pick, X quantity of whatever, and you could add it on like a construction cost, it's going to cost you so much. So to get to that level of complexity for a forest management contract is way over my head. So you're going to need a contracting attorney to even get this thing together.
But how do we know that they're competitive without having numbers in front of us? And,
I think
and statistics in front of us and certifications in front of us? How do we know it's competitive?
We don't.
Like we said, we went out last time. They were responsive. We picked them. I told you, as far as my
That was
experience
10
with
years
forester.
That was 10 years ago. You still run the same computer you had 10 years ago?
I'm not into cliches, Ricky.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, it's things change. I don't know.
I mean, $65 an hour for a professional is not
I'm
unreasonable.
not denying that. I'm
Yeah.
not denying that at all. And like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not denying anything that Meadows End has provided us up to now. Just saying that again, that I think as you know, stewards of the checkbook, we have to look into this stuff. That's all.
Okay, so I hear you feeling, that's, you know, so do we want to go with a 10-year agreement? And can we use the town attorney to draft this all up so that we've got something that's legally usable or not?
Right, I think having the town attorney draft it up, I think is a good idea. I think that she reviews all of our other contracts anyways.
Right, well, we need a contract attorney, not just
Right.
reviewing the contract.
Right, no,
To
no, I'm
even
saying-
develop this.
Right, but what I'm saying is she reviews the contracts we do anyway, so that is normal practice for us to do, is to have one at least reviewed, if not drafted by. So, again, but I think 10 years might be a stretch, my own personal
In
feeling.
forestry, it's not, trust me.
You don't plant a crop and harvest it that year.
No, you don't, right.
Your
It's a long time.
long-range planning requires long-range retention.
We're on
Otherwise, you're going, one direction, then 2 years later, you're going a different direction, and you lose consistency. So we'd want to be able to retain someone covering a time period that makes sense for forestry, which is unlike purchasing plows.
Right.
It is
Right.
a professional service that requires vision and updated vision, in order to get that value. So we've had a price for 10 years. That's the price. Is the price going up? What's not going up? Well, no, that price doesn't go up for us because we have this understanding. The forester isn't coming to us and saying, we need more money. We need more than $25,000 a year, or we need more than $65 an hour. And everything else, I almost can guarantee you, they're saying that equipment's gonna cost more this year, or that's gonna cost more in 5 years. We've been level for 10 years. We've provided dollar consistency and value to the town to have a coherent plan that returns funds to the forest account. We have a person who represents an entity that has resources, that has youth, that's renewing itself, that has commitments to much larger projects in the town of Weare. And what I worry about, now stand up here, what I worry about is we'll go to some model where we need to put out an RFP every year to go to allow us to spend the $20,000 or $25,000 that comes out of town forest account. I don't think you can manage forests as a one-year item. And if you don't like 1 year,
No.
and you don't like 10-year, are you saying 5 years the magic number? This is stuff that we need to know in order to come up with a plan to effectively manage the forest. And
Right.
frankly, we had a gap. We had a gap of no management. And that's also an option. The town spends no money on the town forest. The town gets no revenue. The town does nothing with the town forest account. That's an option. And the town, as a voting body, could decide that in a year and say, we don't believe that conservation is managing this effectively, so we'll vote no. You cannot expend anything. We do not expend a dime without the approval of the town.
Right, and
So-
that's a possibility.
So
That
help
can be
help
voted
formulate
down.
these parameters. Steve, and I think the commission as a whole, feels this ought to be a long-term management relationship. It's not growing trees, growing forests, or keeping healthy forests is not something that you can achieve, by changing horses every year.
Right, and I don't think this board wants to change every year, absolutely
No.
not. No, I'm
looking
thinking
at,
5 to 7
we
years
get five,
myself.
5 to 7, this is 10 years. I mean, and then the thing that really struck me is when he said, the forester turns around and says, oh, we don't have to abide by the bidding policy of the town. I mean, number one,
What are you
when you
talking
said
about?
about the gates and stuff like
Fred
that.
Francesco gave us that guidance.
Well, that wasn't a place to do it because the town has a policy that it has to be done, and it's the same,
Well,
with the same thing,
Jack,
you can't just
You're presenting
say.
us, and you have over the last few months, with new information.
Yeah.
All right? So now
And I understand
now we're
that,
trying
you've
to
got
come to
that
grips with
information,
new
but I'm just saying,
information.
stuff,
But the purchasing policy's not new.
That's
It
not
just
new.
wasn't enforced.
it wasn't
The
enforced.
policy's been in effect since 2008.
Yep.
This board has been proactive in enforcing
Saying
it with all of the departments.
I mean, we're looking at a contract that's been in effect for 10 years.
The only thing
We
that
get
changed this last year on the 2008 policy was that everything over $1,000 had to have 3 quotes.
Yeah.
Right.
so that's why, and Ricky's been the
Are you-
biggest stickler with it,
Yeah.
because nobody followed it in
Are you then
2008.
saying every
Every department.
every
Everything
forest
over
management
$1,000.
every
I'm sorry.
forest-
finish.
services agreement that's above $1,000 needs to be bid,
Can do that?
open bid separately?
We talk agreement, we talk contract. I
No.
don't understand.
There's the contract which employs a professional services.
Sure.
Now, to execute the contract, to actually have the services rendered, there's a FSA, Forestry Services Agreement,
Okay.
that sets the price for, amongst other things, gates. It sets a price for hourly services.
And how
Now,
often is that done?
often those are more than $1,000. Are you telling us that each one of those needs to go out to at least 3 different entities?
Hourly services for somebody's employment is different than from having a piece of equipment or a product done. For instance,
Well, I
he
agree,
goes-
and that's a distinction we're trying
That's
to
a
make.
distinction,
So
and
are
that's
you
in the
telling me
policy.
that-
Now, if you're turning around and Benji needs a plow, and it's $1,500, then he's got to get 3 quotes for it. But to turn around and say, oh, no, we got to get quotes for his hourly service, no,
Let's
that's
say,
different.
let's say Jeremy is preparing a renewal of a forest management plan. And the FSA, Forestry Services Agreement, comes to us for $2,500. Now, you
You've
have-
contracted him, right? He's under contract to do this.
correct.
That's
Right at the
that's
beginning, covering whatever period.
That's within
And
your
our
contract.
contract was open-ended. Existing contract, open-ended. You're telling us we can't do that?
No, what we're saying is to put up a $3,000 fence or gate, no, that should have gone out to bid.
Right, and I get that clearly, and I
But to
appreciate
turn around
hearing
and do
that,
the services,
But I'm
to
asking
have him
you-
draw up plans, that's what he's getting paid for, that's his hourly rate,
And that's fine.
and that's fine.
That's not, that thing is not, that forestry services agreement is not by an hourly rate, it's by acre for that plan.
Well, some it's hourly, I'm just using
Yeah.
hourly as an example, and that's
But-
what was said, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
you've got it by the acre, you've got so much an acre, or whatever, and I mean, that's what comes part of the hiring the service for $25,000 in the warrant article, is right? And it
Yeah.
says for Forest Service, that's what that 25,000, it doesn't say for gates, it doesn't say for anything else, it says for forestry services.
And that was the
Yeah.
discrepancy
But
last year,
let's-
was we thought, this board was under the understanding, sitting on the stage, that the $25,000 or $30,000 went straight to the town forester. It
says
was
the
used for nothing else.
It says
But
the
we didn't know that.
It
That's
says
what I'm
right
saying.
here, to
It's-
secure
it's-
contracted services with a licensed forester, prepare forest management plans, secure contracted services for the town forest maintenance,
Yeah.
and to fund this appropriation by authorizing withdrawal from the town forest
So
account.
there you go.
Doesn't
Okay.
say anything about build,
Maintenance is gate. Keeping people out of a road with a four-wheeler is maintenance. Yeah,
no,
it is.
no.
Really? I mean, so we're making this up off the cuff.
No,
That-
I don't
That
think-
was the intention. That's been the history.
I don't think that's maintenance. Maintenance to me is something entirely different. You know,
To me, it would be maintaining the road that goes into the.
full-
into the
Well, what do you
planting.
think are blazing the boundaries? Is that maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh?
so this is just part of protecting your boundaries. It's all the same thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't sit here and argue about a gate. You know, that's fine. Whatever we want to think about gates.
But
maintenance
understand
is
how
road-
how that's gonna work. We have our professional, we're volunteers, we hire somebody, we pay somebody who's in the business 100% to do the work. So that professional would put together a request for proposal for a gate,
yeah.
right? And then he would shop that. That's simple, we've
Yeah.
done that
So,
with many things, but in this case, it was a specialty service, and based on a relationship, and you can argue whether you can work on a relationship or not, but based on a long-term relationship, it matched our expectations for a quality gate in a difficult area. We've all accepted, going forward, absolutely, at least three quotes, call them bids, but 3 numbers from different entities come back, and that's doable. But what we need to do is retain that professional service to actually do the work that allows the request for quote to go out.
Right.
We can't do that. We don't have the time, nor are we professionals. Nor do we want to ask our town administrator to do that. She's not a professional forester. She doesn't have the contacts to do that. So we need to retain a professional to do that for us. So that's a separate item, and please, when we're talking about the requests, the forestry services agreement, that's an aberration. That, yes, a capital purchase, but that's an aberration. 99% of the time, those are for the brain power to think through a problem and come up with a plan. And that plan is the long-term maintenance of a forest.
At an hourly rate, correct?
It
No,
might not be
to
hourly, it
combat.
might be based on the acreage.
But it's based on that $25,000
It
that
comes
you,
out of the
of that.
allowance. That's just an
Okay.
allowance, that's not a,
well, it's what you.
that's not a
but
lump
that's-
sum that you can bill for.
No, but that's what you.
It comes out-
That's what you
it's-
had appropriated for this
It's a
purpose.
set aside allowing us to draw on it. If we don't set aside, we can't draw a penny out of it.
That's right.
Because the town, as a body, has to vote to approve that. Has to approve the funds going into that service. And no, those funds don't go to a business, to an entity, without two-step process that Steve has mentioned to you. The forestry services agreement, that gets checked and approved. When the work's done, the invoice comes in, gets checked and approved. And then those funds, and only after those two steps, are those funds removed from the town forest account or from the allowance that the town voters have approved. And before I go any further, I would like one of our members, Lori, to have a chance to speak with you guys also.
I'm a very new member to this committee, but I'm not new to the Board of Selectmen. I have lived in other towns, and I have spent a great deal of time over the last month researching in other towns what their conservation committees do, how they get their funding, how in-depth the Board of Selectmen is involved, and what the minutia expenditure is getting to. I understand wanting 3 bids. There seems to be a disconnect as to what exactly the Conservation Committee does in their level of responsibility, that this board, and I don't know about the other boards, do not have that range. You have not investigated that. New rules are coming into place without understanding what exactly they do and how they do it. Perhaps a better way of addressing some of these things is having a meeting with them to ask more questions and have a better dialogue of how this all works, and perhaps research on parts of what other towns do and how they work with their conservation committees, because the other towns do not jump through the hoops that you are asking this group to jump through. I understand the concerns, believe me, but I also think it is prudent that we do a little more investigation as a whole body to make sure that, for whatever reason, we suddenly find this committee needing to be under a microscope, financially managed by a board, no disrespect meant, that has yet to understand how they do things, why they do things. And there needs to be more education, investigation on everybody's part, because it's a little tense in here, and it's not a good way to get things done. We all know that. And I think for the best thing to do, while there is some understanding, perhaps we should all do more investigation to get sure that we understand where we're all going and make it a more comfortable conversation.
I guess I'm in agreement with parts of that. I have written down here names of towns and so forth that I wanted to give a phone call to for conservation commissions to see how long their contracts last out, if they're longer than 10 years or if they're shorter than 10 years. I think that maybe we should meet again. And, after following up on some of these areas, so.
I think a work session between the two boards would
Right.
be excellent, because
Yeah.
we should see what you guys do, and that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we've put you you guys are the commission, and you guys are responsible for the forest, the town's forest, and we're kind of responsible for the town checkbook, at the end of the day. So I think a work session should be put in place, myself. But again, and I think we beat a dead horse. That capital expenditures for solid objects as far as the gate, or if you're gonna put you know, like even just, you know, pronouncing it, this is the XYZ forest of the town of Weare, a sign like that would fall into that purchasing policy, because that's gonna stay there for more than a year. You know, that this is, so, but something that deeply concerns me is the fact that it seems nobody can find this contract.
We've got an unsigned copy of it. We've got the email traffic, but that just came up, because I just talked to Naomi about it today to try to get the copy of it,
Okay.
to see if it was in the file.
That deeply concerns me, that there's nothing
Right.
signed, and we're working, you know, again, and I'm not saying
But
that.
that's why it's up. I mean, I'm not saying it's up. I mean,
That's why the topic's up.
I mean, I think that's, I mean, the purchasing policy created the topic, but, you know, the whole purchasing policy and contracts and the whole discussion kind of gotten piled in together.
Right.
Right.
If it was a 10-year plan with him, you know, I don't have a problem putting out RFPs. We've done it before. We make Benji do it for trucks. We make everything. But at the end of the day, we don't pick the lowest. And if Jeremy has the most to offer, then let's continue our
Then we'll pick
relationship.
him. I mean,
But
that's
at the
not-
same time, we've done it before, and I don't like this quote, but they say it keeps everybody honest. So at the same time, if he wants to offer and he offers that much more than everybody else, then why wouldn't that benefit the town of Weare?
Yeah, you know, I mean, back when we did this, you gotta understand that it never boiled down to any of that. It all boiled down to being fully responsive to the services that we
And I'm
requested.
sure. I mean, I know Jeremy, and he does a very
yeah.
good job.
So, you know, I think another part of our problem here is the timing of when this is all coming up. So we're either gonna kill forestry for a whole entire year, except for, you know, we've got an agreement signed for a timber harvest on Felch, or maybe the board could take an opportunity to let it ride for a year while we meet and figure this out and come up with a contract. I mean, I think that would be kind of a, you know, sort of a compromise.
Like Andy said, I don't want to see the forest go unmanaged. I don't want to see that. I mean,
So take, I mean,
there
he's
has to
got a
be-
great offer.
yeah.
I mean, let's just let Jeremy continue and let's meet more often.
Yeah, I think that's where,
We gotta
you
get
know,
an upgraded
moving
contract.
forward
Great
from
opportunity.
8:30 now on, I think what we need to do for right now is, again, keep status quo. We're not gonna you know, turn the boat over, with the exception of the purchasing policy to be followed for, again, the capital expenditures, like a gate or a sign or something like that.
Yeah.
But as of right now, you know, I want to figure out why we don't have a signed contract.
So let's, you know, just,
See,
I would
now,
have-
in 2000, whenever Fred departed, Fred's office got cleaned and put somewhere.
Right.
I don't honestly know where all the stuff got put.
I've never
got
met the man,
boxed
so
up.
I have no idea.
It got boxed up, and I don't know where. I'm coming across things now and then, I
Nobody's-
think, by
Nobody's got a
accident.
copy of a signed contract, that's.
Well, I
problem.
honestly, and I didn't have a chance to look today. You know,
But I
Steve and
mean,
I
as
talked
of-
this morning.
As of this point, there's nobody does. If we find one that's different, then that's fine, but
Right.
I'm
Let-
all for letting it go, but next year start rebidding the process. I mean, start
Or
getting.
reevaluating.
Let's have some more
Reevaluate.
conversations about
Yeah.
that.
And like I said, work sessions with you guys. You know.
Well, let me be clear about one thing. Everybody on the commission's a volunteer.
Yeah.
And we are very limited in our time that we can commit to
Sure.
these difficult management things. So we do rely very heavily on the hired town help, the town administrator. And right or wrong, we were given some information from the previous town administrator. And Naomi, you know, I rely very heavily on, you know, you doing things for us that keep everything moving.
Mhm.
So we
Absolutely.
leaned on the previous administrator, no differently than we're leaning on the current administrator.
Right.
So, you know, it's a request as a chair, but also a personal request, Naomi, to help us, you know, find these pieces of information that make the dialogue more informative and less squishy and guessy. And, you know, we want to see the you know, the hard copies too.
Yeah.
And I just want to reemphasize one more point. It's been 10 years of work for us without asking for more.
Right.
It's been quality work, and very few industries out there are flatlining their dollars. So I find this very different than computer services. Equipment changes price very quickly. Sometimes it goes down. More often than not, you get more and you pay a little more. I do want it to be at least well represented in the minutes that we as a commission do view this service as a professional service, not a commodity. And I don't want to fall into the trap of comparing it to commodities. And you know, Mr. Meany, Selectman Meany, I respect what you're requesting in that we get a schedule of contract renewal. And there ought to be an opportunity for others
Right.
to step up and say, I can do better, I can do more at a lower cost. And we welcome,
Competitive.
maybe welcome is not the best word. We don't welcome the extra work that it requires for us, but we welcome the sentiment that says, you know, hold on a second, this is not indefinite term, please don't think of it as that. You know, like we do with other professional services, and, you know, I'd say engineering and legal services maybe are similar examples. We do want to, at least in some fashion, reevaluate the playing field. And whether that's, you know, a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, or some other form of contract, that is something in retrospect, and with some hardship, but in we accept. The hardship is, we got precious little time, and volunteers are hard to keep and hold on to, and we don't want to overtax ourselves to the ability where we can't step forward and keep the gears moving in a coherent management fashion, which, you know, which was a specter, which was a case before, frankly, before Steve joined the commission, and brought to our attention that the town has a responsibility to manage the town forest, and we're not doing that as a town. That goes through the Conservation Commission. I'm willing to jump on the commission and do the legwork and provide insight as somebody trained in forestry to get this thing going. So I really appreciate the hard work Steve did to bring us to a point where we weren't zero or non-managing the town forest. So I just wanted to reflect, you know, a couple key points there. And I appreciate the sentiment, Chairman Hippler, that we need to dialogue, we need to understand better as two different bodies, but as a Conservation Commission, yes, we have stepped back and said, capital purchases, you know, let's key ourselves into expectations with the understanding that perhaps a policy is now being handled differently from the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think anybody on this board would say that you know, that we don't appreciate what you guys do, because we do. You know, it's something that, again, that you guys, you know, and for no uncertain terms, specialize in.
Right.
You know, you guys have put the foot forward to talk and deal with, you know, with Meadows End and Jeremy, and go out and evaluate these. Again, 100 utmost respect for you guys, you know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you stating that.
And I don't think that anything, and it goes for all the commission, like I said, and all the boards in this town, because again, like you said, they're volunteer.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the volunteers are trying to better the town.
And at the end of the day, I am sincere, as I was at the end of my letter, that we together need to understand better so that
I would agree.
so your questions are answered and they're not lingering doubts and distrusts or concerns. You know, we want you to understand to the point where you know the expectations of how the work's done, and we know the expectations of, you know, how what we do fits into the, you know, you as the elected body, as the governing board over this town.
So
I believe going forward too, that we'll have a better feeling of what's going on, because Sherry is now part of the board, your commission, so, and she can come back to us with the information that may be lacking, that we don't have or haven't had.
You know, and some of the disconnect that comes here might be for the fact of, I mean, look at this board. I'm the senior member of 4 years. You know, I mean, it's I mean, to me, it's, you know, it's a big change of the guards. You know?
My apologies, 4 years of not giving much time personally to the Board of Selectmen, because I
don't, you know, again,
I find myself tapped out, and that gets a bit difficult.
Selectmen's reps too.
Right,
Right.
right. And I think that this part is going to be, you know, is gonna be
Conservation
better.
does not.
you know.
There's no ex
conservation's not
officio
one of
to the
those.
conservation.
But having Sherry on there is
It's a great
nothing but.
added feature.
nothing-
Great, I just
nothing
think
but-
Right,
Right,
and,
but an
and
asset,
I don't want you to, I want to get beyond the, well, they're the conservation. I want to get to the point where you guys say, they are our conservation commission,
Right.
and we fully understand how they work and,
Right.
you know, the requirements of the job.
Right, and like I said, and I think we, you know, again, we as two boards, commission, board, need to explore, you know, other, you know, as a whole. You know, what we do, what you guys do, what they do out there, I think it's just, you know, again, I think it's an ignorance of information, but, you know, honestly.
We got a few more good things for you tonight,
Oh,
too.
come on.
okay.
But, just for formality's sake,
Yep.
though, are we all agreeing, I don't know if you all need to vote, that, you know, essentially a 1-year exemption from that to do what we've been doing, you know,
Well, I don't think anything's gonna change. Because it's been status quo, I don't think we need to change anything.
You have nothing
Oh.
signed.
Right, so I think it's just, we'll, for now.
Okay, great. So as long as we get that in the minutes, that'll be good. So the couple other issues that we need to discuss with you tonight are land management related. First off, well, kind of, we discussed this other one, just wanted to go back through. The relationship between the town forest account and the capital improvements program, you know, we talked about this before, and I just want to make sure that either we're not confused or you guys aren't confused. The warrant article that allows the expenditure of X dollars, whatever it happens to be that year, for a non-specific land acquisition. I think we kind of went back and forth on whether it was appropriate for that to be in capital improvements or not, and
And you'd missed the conversation earlier,
uh,
because part of it says CIP expenditures are considered beyond the scope of the normal annual operating or maintenance expenses. Examples include land acquisition for public purposes, which is just what you described.
what, in SIP, you mean?
CIP,
Yeah.
if it's more than $15,000.
Right, no, but
then
the,
land acquisition for public purpose needs to go through CIP.
so I think the key to that is, it's coming out of the forest account, but there is no land acquisition is the problem. We're
What are
just,
you buying for that?
nothing. You're
It
actually,
says to purchase new town forest land.
yeah, if it becomes available. There's
Right.
nothing
So why
specific.
wouldn't it go through? It's a land acquisition
Need
of
to go
public.
through CIP.
It's a
because
land
if
acquisition
land becomes
if it
available,
comes
You're
around.
gonna use town money to purchase it.
Right.
It needs
It's
to
land
go through
acquisition,
CIP.
yeah.
So what's the, I mean, you know, based on the thing tonight, what's the point, though? You know, it's not like you're really doing anything budgeting wise, it's just making it available.
Well,
So now
we-
we've missed that whole process this year, so are we gonna put a warrant article on?
That's up to these guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I'm
all we need to
But what
know.
I'm saying is, I understand that you don't know when you come, but still, you're looking at maybe purchasing. And as I think I tried to explain, that the fire chief came forward, and a good share of his comes from the special revenue.
Yeah.
So there's a zero tax impact, just like yours becomes how you fund it is the town forest, is a zero tax impact. But he still came through the process
He
as
still
the
came.
total capital package.
So I think the problem you're gonna run into too is that the reason that's on there is because you can't expend from the town forest account without a vote of
And you
the.
can't expend his without a vote.
Yeah, I was just trying to finish though, but
Sure.
the conservation account, you can expend without a town vote, so that doesn't go on SIP either.
No, that doesn't, but your article would. Your article would be a CIP.
Okay, but what I'm saying, if you wanted to take money,
When you say your article, please.
I'm saying the article
town
that you're
forest
looking to take money from town forest for a purchase of town forest land is a land acquisition for public purpose.
but that's where the problem is, so how
And
does
you're
that?
asking the town to spend money.
What about the other,
Yeah.
what about the planning part of it?
The 30,000?
The 20?
I think because that can be
No.
broken up in different sections,
That
under
didn't go to,
15.
that doesn't go to CIP.
That
That doesn't go to
That doesn't go to
CIP.
That would
That's the
not go to
higher,
CIP.
that's basically the highest of money.
Yeah, that would
So-
not.
Is it still a separate warrant article because of your funding?
But you're missing what I'm asking though.
I
So
don't think so.
we have combined town forest and conservation, or we've used conservation by itself to buy land. We don't know what's coming, money's sitting there, there's no requirement for a warrant article, there's a requirement for a couple public hearings, and the
Right,
Board of
here,
Selectmen
yeah.
approve it. So that's never gonna make it on SIP. Potentially.
SIP.
But we're still putting.
Capital improvements
Oh.
program.
I didn't know what SIP
I've
was.
never heard it called that
My
before.
granddad
What'd you call it? I don't know.
We call it CIP,
Capital-
we
yeah,
never heard it called
CIP.
SIP. But no.
Work for the government.
But again, the possibility is there to spend over $15,000 on land that goes on the warrant article. I believe that article, should, I think that, and again, and it may be the same presentation every single year. This is why we buy forest land, this is why we,
If it comes available.
if it comes available, this is why we buy it, to further the, the image of the town, to conserve land, for whatever, again, basically it's the same write-up we've had for the last however many years I can remember, for those two articles, for the forester and for that town.
No,
purchase.
the Forester one wouldn't go on
Forester
the
one doesn't
capital
go to
improvements.
CIP.
No.
It wouldn't go to CIP, but I'm saying is the write-up that we put is the same both years. So I think the presentation would be the same both years, but to follow the CIP process, I believe that 130 or 125.
It's whatever's there, actually. Usually what
Whatever's
we
there
usually,
to acquire should go through the CIP process.
So we
That
did,
one article.
so we all set not doing that this year?
I believe my feeling would be yes because of timeline. Is that all right? with the
Yeah,
board?
I mean, you heard the presentation, it's over.
Right.
It's over.
I asked you when you
Done.
left.
So,
Yeah.
so I think 19 would be the year to start that for that one article.
Could I make a request on that? Can that be, I hate to harp on this, but, the difficult part of a volunteer board is getting the work done. Can the town administrator help us by shepherding that through? All is needed of us is what is the dollar amount? And we can look at the account and say, the dollar amount this year with no purchases, it's grown because we have harvest monies that go into it. The dollar amount might be $150,000. And then I don't need to look at the specter of a 10 o'clock in the morning meeting, during my workday.
My feeling
That
would
can
be-
go right on through, just as long as we're in agreement on what level of potential expenditure might be allowed from the town forest account.
My own feeling would be, you saw the presentation tonight. If you guys may have an 8.5 by 11 with information on it, I think that would be sufficient.
Wait, there's an application that you have to fill out. That Beth has made a fillable form very easy.
Okay.
It's all fillable, it's on the computer. You check off the appropriate boxes, you give a description, and you send it.
Mm-hmm.
And Parks and Rec does as a volunteer. Now, mind you, the other ones are paid, so they're here during the day.
Yeah.
See, I've looked at this. I tried to fill out that form, it was like 5, 7, 8 years ago. And it made no sense
Right.
for what I was doing. There's like this yearly accrual, and it's a 10-year plan, and, everything grows. And it's like, no, what we request doesn't grow because of each year it's
And I
approved
think
for
the
more to
old
go
way of
into
doing
it.
it was
It
that-
only grows because of revenue generated during a harvest.
Correct. Right.
And it also
So
used
there-
to be
and then
very
there's-
cumbersome, and I'll admit with you, it was very cumbersome when we didn't have the CIP subcommittee. When we established the subcommittee, took it off, because I remember sitting here for many nights at the planning board till the wee hours of the morning, waiting for everybody to get through the process.
Then my appeal would be, we've got a new process. Naomi, can you fill it in, send it, and say, check off what the commission has voted in as an official request for this year?
Well-
Do that bit, fill it in, get it back to me, and then I will let it go along, and it'll be part of the record.
Well, I think that, for 19,
For 19, yeah.
Right, no, I mean,
For
this
20.
is a
There's 19.
conversation in
Yeah, 19 is
anticipation of
done.
the
Too late.
it'd be
next,
2020.
the
It's gonna
next
be
time
next
it
year.
goes around, so that we are players, but we need, be,
Maybe
let us be aided in
It'll-
the
Maybe what we can
playing
do
it.
now is the new one that we have, send it to them. I mean, if there's no harm, no foul, see if it's the same thing you had before. Yeah, I don't think it is.
We've already got it.
It
We sent
probably
it out.
is.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah,
I
let
already
me
sent it to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
I don't think I attached the fillable, I just sent the example of the form.
okay. But I would agree, I don't want to put unnecessary hardship on any of the volunteers to show up to CIP during, like you said, 10 o'clock on them.
The thing is,
In the week.
we're not going to identify a property beforehand.
No.
And we're not
No.
going to guarantee any purchase any given year.
Right.
But we need support to allow,
If
should
something comes up.
an appropriate parcel
Right.
come
Oh, yeah,
available,
just-
allow
just-
that expenditure.
I think it has to be just land. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not buying a truck, so it has to be a 2019
Right.
Ford or 2019 Kenworth.
And
or
we're not
something
setting
like that.
aside a certain amount every year to build a
Right.
pot to
Right.
buy something in 10
Right.
years. It's
That's
a,
correct.
it's a hit or miss thing, and you need to have the funds, or if you don't have them, good luck to talk to an interested seller who's,
Hang on to it for another year.
Yeah.
Another year, right.
But
No.
my
So I think
my
we work-
request is just,
Assist-
if there's a form,
Yeah.
better to fill out everything you can and give me a chance to only hit 2 things. And I apologize for that. But the number of things that even a podunk little town like this and a volunteer commission have to deal with, and things that fall
Staggering.
through the cracks, it's significant. So I really rely on the good faith paid help that we have to pay the bills, to
Yeah.
approve the conversations or to fill out the forms, and you know,
Yeah.
I try not to feel bad, because if I can't have the help, I can't do the job.
That's right. No,
And I
wouldn't disagree.
I wouldn't want to step away for that reason.
No, I wouldn't disagree. And again, I'm not, I don't, again, what we're trying to do is not push anybody out or overwhelm anybody. It's not what we're trying to do at all. It's just, again, it's, we have these, I won't say rules and regulations, but, guidelines that we have in place.
Yeah.
And-
And it comes across as if we're ignoring you, and we're not trying to do that.
And I-
We're trying to
I don't, in tonight's,
expend the energies in the places where we think we can.
in tonight's conversation,
Build something.
I'm gathering that more and more.
Thank you.
That the fact that, again, that it's been old word that you guys been on, so I think, again, it's gonna come between the.
I'm comfortable with that conversation we've had on the CIP. One more thing, Steve?
No, there's a whole laundry list. So I'm just pulling up the names here, because I know I needed to write this down because I'd forget it eventually. All right, so you remember the folks that came in? There was a discussion about using the right-of-way to the Eastman Conservation Area, and the parcel got exchanged between Sykes and, if I don't have my glasses right, Gates and Huel were their last names.
And they don't have the CC on the letter that I haven't sent yet, but.
Oh, you didn't send it yet? Oh, okay, yeah. I was wondering
Sitting
about-
there, come on, Andy, get to this, and I.
Yeah, okay, so I was wondering about
So I
that.
apologize.
You're gonna get CC'd on a
Yes.
letter that Andy
Yes,
hasn't
that's right.
signed yet.
Okay.
So, in any event, this kind of started off as the easement monitor for Eastman Conservation Area said, hey, there's a trailer parked up there. So that was, we tracked that down with the police department. There was the tent that we talked about. And then there's, so they cleared their lot, and then they also cleared, to some extent, I suppose you have to do this, but if you can envision, the driveway, and then, like, in front of their lot, facing the driveway. So some of those were town trees. But, that may or may not be allowable, I don't know. But the thing is now, all these trees are stacked on our property, which just can't happen. So they're encroaching on town land. And so we've got this letter asking for them to get those trees out of there. And, so you just need to be aware of that, and we need to enforce, the terms and conditions of that easement, and PLC will get on us about it as well. So that's one issue that we might have to keep moving on. And then Chip said something about, there were some things that were supposed to happen before they did anything up there, but I don't know. He seemed happy that we're going to CC him. So we've got that going on. The next issue is Cortlandt Ave, right? So we've got this big construction project going on up there now. The town did something really bad, and it did something really bad several times. Not just there. We accepted an easement without having the pins set. So you don't know where the impacts are happening on the ground. Now, I heard from a resource professional that was doing work there that we were looking for a quote to put signs out that the easement has been violated. I talked to Will Lambert, I don't know if he's the owner or director or what his deal is, but, it's kind of funny. I'm talking like, hey, when are you guys going to do this? It's like, oh, are we responsible? Like, yeah, you're the developer. So they're either going to get the pins in this fall or in the spring. Now, he hasn't got back to me. We talked, and so we've got a pretty significant problem here. We have a duty to uphold that easement. We don't know where it is. They're starting to sell lots. You've got all that construction going on. So, you're like our last line of defense on this issue at this point. And I think that, as a best management practice on these developments, we should really be sending a town engineer out there to see that all the pins were set, because we got punked on, what's the one that's up on, Holly Hill.
Holly Hill,
Found out
yeah.
a couple pins weren't set up there. We end up paying for that to get those put in on the easement. I think we might even own that in fee. It was the leftovers from an open space development. And, you know, now we've got the same issue with a really old easement that we hold, which the Forest Society has been jumping all over us about monitoring. We got Meadowcent to go out and perambulate the boundaries on Collins Ledge open space. Half the monuments aren't there, so you can't locate the thing. So
How can you defend the town interest if you
Yeah.
can't say where it starts and stops?
Starts and stops, right?
So now we're gonna have to survey that, you know, we're kinda left holding the bag on that one. You know, another lousy open space development is that Eleanor Way. They were, still not sure if the
Sure.
improvements were removed. Pins got obliviated, and construction occurred on town land. Their, irrigation system,
Fee-owned land
yeah.
that has a subdivision infrastructure plopped all over it.
So we've got these messes that we've been tackling using conservation funds, you know, not going back to the town for anything. I mean, obviously, you know, some of these surveys, we'll have to go out on a request for proposal and figure out, you know, our thought originally would probably be have Meadowcent manage the surveyor. But now, you know, can we have the town engineer go manage a surveyor in that whole process, or how would you handle that one?
Have you talked to Chip about the Cortland development? Because he's
You know, I
been down.
called
He's
Wendy.
been, yeah, he's been,
He's-
Wendy.
No, I talked to Chip directly because
Yeah.
he's been down there, and there's still other issues I know going on, so.
Yeah, well, this one, none of us are gonna be able to do anything about without a licensed surveyor. So either, you know,
And
I
I know
would
this, the town engineer has been down there for stuff, so.
He's an engineer, not a surveyor.
right,
he's an engineer,
Right,
yeah.
So,
but what I'm thinking for these other, that one, you know, that development's still going. You guys can do something about that. I mean, yeah, I would suggest that you should look into it and make them set the pins before anything gets sold. And we,
Well,
Well, they've got open house, they're showing down there now,
Yeah.
well,
so.
right now it was blocked off with trucks, so they're not showing anything.
no, they're working
Well, this
down there.
morning,
They
right.
cleared it all
No, I
up.
mean, it was
Yeah.
this afternoon, it was blocked
Yeah,
right
they had,
off.
it was that truck
But
was
they've already
across
got the
this
house
morning.
established,
Yeah.
yeah.
They've got a
Yeah,
house
they've got one, it's an
established.
open house, but they.
And they've sold one.
But they can't, I know there's things before they get certificate of occupancy, they have to have the road done, if they have the pavement.
Right.
And
Now-
they haven't, you know, so far off the road, they haven't done that at all, so
But
that
all-
nobody's getting a CO
Can we
for
put
that.
that as a stipulation?
Who gives the last final okay before they start to build? Who gives the final okay in
Planning
town?
board.
Planning
Before the
board.
planning board,
Planning board?
yeah.
When
So-
you-
So why isn't the planning board having that as a list, that the pins have to be in and has to be
should show on the
looked at
plan.
before they ever start to build? Why isn't the planning
Well,
board?
there's a road involved, you don't put your front pins
Pins in
in and
until
then
the
put your
road's
road
done.
in.
Yeah.
You put your road in and
Our
then put
problem's
your
on the
pins.
back pin.
Right
It's a
there.
backside.
It's the back
That's
pits.
Right,
basically where
but
the
we're
conservation-
talking, I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
we all loved and embraced the cluster developments, which I think were the biggest nightmare
Yeah.
going along.
Oh, it's a
I
big,
I
yeah.
didn't.
I never liked them, I can tell you
I'll tell you the
that.
problem.
Yeah, because it's a huge nightmare.
Well, no, because it's not implemented correctly. The problem is that we allowed the developers to maximize their profit,
And the-
and we didn't essentially veto poor developments. Remember the Heathfield development? That was a pretty good open space one, because it was like,
The
essentially
Bunny
half of it was, you know, was a solid like square that made sense. The problem is when you have tons of boundary line compared to a minimal amount of acreage, it's really hard to deal with. You know, so just really bad shapes. A really ideal open space development will leave something that's manageable in the end, and it doesn't need to go to the town. The town doesn't even need to be involved. I mean, you could have 40 acres left over with a gigantic house to do farming, forestry, or whatever. That's a great idea. It was our implementation of, you know, the whole concept that was really poor. And we've got punked on the Duck Pond. That's going to be a nightmare, because not only do we have a really lousy residual open space, at the time, they allowed them to count the backsides of lots as part of that open space, and we're going to have to enforce that those people can't do anything with the backside of their own
It should
property.
be back in the same dilemma you are on Holly Hill.
Oh, it's going to be, yeah, well, we already accepted the fee
The only-
ownership.
Let me toss this out there.
Yeah.
Why can't why couldn't the conservation propose a change to the planning board regulations?
We can.
And my thought is make the boundary line blazed.
So
Would blazing help you out?
yeah, we did change that. It's not
But the-
blazing, but it's
Well,
signage.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying blaze the conservation land, I mean, make that part of the requirement to a developer. But it would have to be at the subdivision level so that it could be blazed.
Mhm.
So it changes to the,
And have the pins all put in on the back. I mean, you can leave the front
but
pins out
even,
where
I
the
mean,
road is gonna
there's a
come.
pin here and there may be a pin 300 feet, and if you could just blaze from pin to pin.
Yeah, the thing
you
about
know.
blazing is
I'm just asking if that's a way of putting it onto the developer, but you gotta put it in the planning board regulations.
it is, but it shows where you spent your whole life in the woods. You know, if there's a field or something, you can't blaze across it, you know? That's,
No, but we seem to have the biggest encroachment
Yeah.
issues that people wanna cut down their backyard and make more lawn.
Right.
That's
You're
the
right.
problem.
Yeah. That Holly Hill's got some similar
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous thing where you can
They've
only
couple
mow
of them
it.
did that.
Yeah, mow it like once a year, but
Right.
it is funny, the whole blazing thing. But we ran into that issue down on Eleanor Way where there wasn't a forest there to blaze. So we were trying to figure out what else to put in there for monumentation.
And it's important for you guys as a board to understand, we don't want this. We don't want the responsibility
No.
of managing a town asset that's been designed in a fashion that's it's almost unmanageable. So you might say, well, you're clustering, conservation wants cluster. Please don't jump to that assumption. We tried.
And I didn't mean you embraced
Yeah.
it, the whole
Well,
town
I-
embraced it.
I just don't want to leave room for that misperception that the reason there are cluster subdivisions is because the Conservation Commission demanded it.
I
All
said,
right.
meant we as a whole town embraced it,
We-
yeah.
Certainly, yeah, through the planning process,
Yeah.
which thankfully.
'Cause it was gonna
we're-
leave open
We're
space.
brought into, but the challenges come from, having an asset that you are legally bound to enforce conditions on. Or if you don't enforce conditions on, then some entity could sue you and say you must enforce or pay a penalty. And we don't want to be in that place, particularly on these developments that are not set. It's bad enough when after the fact you have to go back in and fix some things. But it would be shameful on us as a town to not force those who are pushing the work, to force them to do the right thing as they are engaged with it, at the time that allows us the best opportunity to make the distinction between the private property, free and unencumbered, versus an easement, which is not unencumbered.
So the problems that the town has done is accepted deeds without monumentation. That's just bad, really bad. But,
Now, when you say we accepted it, did we sign off on it?
Mhm.
We did.
yeah. So we've got,
Because anybody can run to the registry and give you away whatever they want.
no, we
to give
signed.
away.
I'm not just sure. I don't know how that got missed, but it got
Yeah.
missed. So that got missed for Duck Pond and it got missed for,
Eleanor.
Eleanor Way. Holly Hill is just a couple missing pins. So,
But
you know,
we do as a town have the ability to say, hey, you want to come and play and develop something in here that's going to be,
These are what you need to do.
a new neighborhood in the town?
Yeah, we
You know,
need to
right
get
on up
stuff
to the Board of
surveyed.
Selectmen, it's expected you will do these things.
Yeah.
So-
Even if you're not, bound by some prior stipulation from the planning board side of things.
so the two that we really need help with right now are, we've got to do something about Cortland.
Cortland's
We've
gotta be-
absolutely got to do something
It's a
about
mess.
that.
Yeah.
And, it's way beyond the Conservation Commission right now, because we're gonna have two things come out of this. We need to figure out where the easement was geographically. They did have some rights to construct some drainage in that easement. They clearly did that right on the front there where they dug out that hole, but
Actually, they filled in that wetland, which
Yeah.
they should have never been allowed to do.
it didn't key out as a wetland when they did a delineation. Marinia did it, but anyhow,
Well, it was a
so-
wetland.
so then we've got the responsibility, once we figure out where it was, to assess and see what they actually
happened to
damaged.
it.
Yeah, because unfortunately the people that set up that easement, SHP, they were hell bent on this was gonna be this natural area, like no cut, can't do anything. So
Right.
now it just got pummeled, at least part of it.
Theoretically.
So, we need to figure that out. So, if you all could maybe get Chip to go up there. I was unsuccessful talking to Wendy about that idea.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to talk to Chip directly for something like that, so.
I mean, can you guys do that?
We have no,
Yeah.
we have no cachet. I mean, it's just, hey, we're worried about this. Well, hey, aren't we all worried? You know,
Well,
we can't tell Chip what to do.
No,
We
you
don't
can
wanna
ask him.
pretend we
I
can.
mean,
Well,
Well, that should be part of his job.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's aware of it, so I mean, that's the
Well,
thing. maybe.
somewhere it needs to be written in.
It-
As far,
that
as
needs-
far,
Right,
as far,
that's what
as far
I-
as a step, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, that,
Yeah.
you need, it's some- whether it's in the planning board or in the building permit, somewhere in the.
Somebody's got to be
before the planning.
following this through.
Somewhere in
And
there,
it
it
may
has to
be.
be in there.
It may be
Right.
in there, I don't know.
If there
what
is
it
an
says.
If it's not in there, you know, and that's the thing, check for easements, and if there are easements, then you do X, Y, Z. But I think at this point, like you said, I think we need to have Chip, you know, if that needs to come from his board, then that's
Yeah,
what it is. We
because I
have-
mean, they've been, before. I
and
don't
a
know
town
what the plans
representative
say.
go down there and
I don't know what the
reestablish
plans
that.
say as far as what they filed with the planning board, but.
Well, the planning board approves the plan, so I believe on
And they-
those older plans, they are allowing them with the pins to say, put a note on the plan that says "to be set."
To be said.
But-
But I'm
That's where our
saying about the
problem is.
pins out in the back for that conservation area.
The
Or
plan
easements
says
To be
TBS.
set.
TVS, I haven't seen them, so.
Yeah, so we should have never accepted the easement back when we did.
So can't we just put it in that the pins have to be put in prior to them building, except,
But where do they go? That's the other thing, that's the other.
Yeah.
thing.
Well, the plan, you just go through with the survey
You
and
go
set.
through
They're
the
all
survey.
set. They're all ready to
Survey.
go.
It's
It's
there.
already been surveyed, so you gotta
surveyed,
look at
so
where
you
they
just
put
go in
them.
and have them pin it.
They should be having
But
an
nothing's
approximate
pinned, so they're
mark to be
building wherever
set.
they
Yeah.
want.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
No, they have an exact mark.
You know,
Right.
the-
And I'm not sure Chip's the guy to go searching for pins. He's not a surveyor.
No, they're not there. I mean, Will
They're
already
not
said
there, there's no
there.
searching to be
They're
done,
definitely
they
not
haven't
there.
put any in.
Okay, so what is Chip doing?
Telling the owner.
Owner
set the
to-
pins.
To set those pins.
To
in
get
the
it
back.
served.
Telling them,
Yep.
Set-
instructing, providing the instruction,
This is to be done, you got 30 days to do it or something.
But we have no
Yeah.
pins.
Yeah, so we
Right.
need to figure out legally, you know,
How to make it, how to get the
How to
pins
make
there.
that
the pin should be in there
Right.
immediately, yeah.
Right.
The other issue down there, before we come off Cortland, is that they've got a pile of loam or dirt or something down there, and they've got it right up over some of the old stone wall. And there's a state law, there's also a town law, because I put that article through, that they can't demolish stone walls and stuff except for the town saying for a driveway or something.
And that might be on the easement.
But this is a great big pile of dirt down there,
It might be
50
there
feet
because
tall.
It has arsenic in it from the old pestle.
Right, but they're knocking they're covering up the stone wall, old stone walls and stuff. They're not supposed to be doing that.
That's a real concern when you're building in an older church. You got people who are gonna be coming in, if that old soil is there, then they start growing their food in it, then they can start ingesting things that are
Exactly.
healthy. I mean, nobody wants to deal with kidney ailments or,
No.
God forbid, cancer, because they didn't know the soil was from an orchard.
Right, so where does that fall back now? Where does that point fall back as far as the stone wall being covered? Is that us? Is that planning board? I don't
I
know.
would say.
Somebody needs to go down there and look at the site.
But who?
Well, I would say
It'd have to
Chip.
come out of the building department.
Planning board.
Yeah,
The
they've
planning
kinda-
board's not gonna go down and walk the site. It'll have to be Chip, I believe.
That's to come out of land use and planning.
That's my feeling. I don't
So
know.
then, all right.
It comes
so
under
then-
code
So
enforcement.
I think that right there could be a chip thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get that taken care of too, because I'd hate to see the stone wall just obliterate over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So then just, you know, we could probably use some advice on the approach you want to take on Collins Ledge. So we have, you know, what we're thinking about doing is have Meadowsend go out with they could probably either do a bid or a request for proposal for surveyors to get a price to go ahead and put the pins in for that whole easement. You know, or
But
do you,
we needed legal on that too, because we don't,
I've already got it.
okay, you did clear that one.
Yeah, so we, you know, we could go in there and set pins. We can do that, but we can't blaze and we can't sign without landowner permission or specifically being in the deed, was the outcome of that. Bill noticed on the Cortland, I didn't notice because I talked to that guy Will about putting those little triangular signs up, but we need to make a batch of those. Yeah, it's gotta be in the deed or you have to get landowner permission. So we'll try to chase down landowner permission to either blaze, but if we get the pins in, then at least we'll know where it is. So,
I'm impressed, we don't own a thing out there, but we are allowed to see the survey properly.
That is ownership. You own rights to that parcel, no different than mineral rights or water rights or anything else. You own the development
So
rights.
based on
As a
that,
town.
we can,
Yes,
enter to set survey pins.
yes.
Okay,
Yep,
excellent.
yeah, that's
I
the
would say
premise
for a
behind it.
survey, then get an RFP for
Well,
surveyors.
again, RFP would be 5,000 over, bid would be.
Clearly, way over.
Bid would be under 5, so it'd be an RFP then.
Okay.
Because it'd be 3 bids up to 5,000, anything over 5,000 RFP.
So our approach, what we planned was on the hourly, you know, 65 an hour that Meadowson charges, that we would have them manage that process. Does that need, so an RFP doesn't need to be sealed, it's just at least 3 proposals from 3 different, or, is
Surveyors.
it reaching out to 3 different surveyors? or
Yeah, you reach
is it
out to them and have
response
them
Yeah,
give a
reaching
price
out
for
to
doing
them.
it.
But if they're non-responsive, like how, you know, because
That's
I know.
before.
Oh.
It's happened, so you.
If you get only 2, then we'll look at the 2
Look at
bids.
the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
reached
reaching out to at
You
least
did your
3.
due diligence.
Yeah, I
for
mean,
free. If only
how many
20
surveyors are
backwards,
around? There's probably a dozen of them, a half a dozen of them close by. You could reach
Yeah,
out
there's
to
plenty of
them.
surveyors around.
Yeah,
and we
so
know
I
the
mean, you
ones
put it
that-
out to them in an email and
Yeah.
bang, and then.
That's like we
whatever.
had Benji, he put the trash trailer out for 3 bids, and there was only 2 manufacturers in the, this side of Mississippi. It only made sense.
Yeah.
So that, we got 2 back. That means, again, he did his due diligence, hey, there's only 2 out there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, surveying tends to be more straightforward than,
Right.
than like forestry services. That
Right.
should be
So-
pretty easy
So
to
you
get
get an hourly
that.
rate and how many
Yep.
days.
Exactly.
Yep.
How many days and how much they're gonna do
Right.
and
So,
what their expectations are.
and now, funding it, is that gonna come from you guys?
Yeah, you just take it out of conservation unless it's a ridiculous amount, then we'll just put it on the back burner. Our problem is we keep getting harassed by the Forest Society.
Yep.
So we, because they own an executory interest, I checked with Laura on that as well. So there's all kinds of, different advice that we need from her. They were saying, they're trying to force us to monitor it yearly. There's no statutory requirement and there's nothing in the easement that says we have to do that yearly. And they threatened to go to the State Attorney General as an abandoned easement against the town of Weare in some correspondence. So I had actually forgot all about it. We knew we had this problem and, we'd got Meadowson to do a reconnaissance level visits to the parcel and, they've got a report and a map and telling us what's missing. So we gave that to the Forest Society a couple months ago and, so that was actually completed last year. And, it's funny, they're like, oh, you're going to go back out there and monitor it this year? It's like, we don't know where the boundaries are. Why, we're going to try to survey this and figure out where it is first and then deal with it. But the town should never, ever hold an easement, and we've got a bunch of them, we should never take another one. It's when we do easements as a conservation commission, it's much better to have someone like PLC or the Forest Society. And, yeah, no, I mean, just they're
them
the
handle
easement
it.
holders, period.
Right.
And ideally, as a town, I like to see us own fee ownership, so we own the property. If we put a conservation easement on to protect it, that's great. But we don't have the staff to monitor easements. And then the big thing I think that's gonna hurt us is when we get into legal fees, like, I really think this Cortland thing could turn into a nightmare. We know we've still got this unresolved problem on Eleanor Way, or we might have an unresolved problem. And if you don't go after these people that are violating the easements, what good is it?
Right.
You can't even change an easement. We looked into, there was some other issue. I mean, you gotta go to like a state attorney general level to try to change one. It's a
Wow.
nightmare.
They're
Wow.
usually giving
All right,
them perpetuity.
Let's say somebody built a driveway
Yeah.
10 foot over the line. Well, let's let them, buy the right for that driveway for, some amount that they'd be interested in, might be valuable to us. It's 10 foot over the line. Well, you can't do that.
No.
That you're locked in,
That's great.
and they have to move the driveway, which is not a good community relations building effort at
No.
all.
No, but again, laws are the law, you gotta, unfortunately,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're locked into these
it's,
things.
lock in, so.
Yep.
You get it with the 12th coming by the time you get it.
Right.
And
Restrictions
we
lifted.
don't want to be in that business.
No,
Not at all.
no, I don't, no.
So can we try to set up a work session maybe for sometime in January to talk about the town forester? And I don't know if you want to come to our meeting or,
Probably be a little more flexible for us to come to your meeting rather than
that'd be
try to have it
good.
here on Monday, because obviously, but, what day you guys meet again?
Second
Second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday?
Yep.
I don't see why. Is there any issues with the board meeting second Wednesday with the commission in January? who speaks out, we'll see you there.
It'll be January 10th.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if y'all get a chance, if you want to call other towns or see what you can find, and we'll
The
do
only
the
thing
same.
I just,
I have a
can
standing
I just want to
Wednesday.
say one thing, Stephen, it's not gonna, and it's not meant to be disrespectful at all. I know you say you pick up the phone and call Laura, and you always stated several times you're a volunteer. If I let every volunteer pick up the phone and call Laura, that's not the same.
I thought that's coming out of our
Typi-
budget.
But typically, everybody goes through me and asks permission to contact her. I'm just saying.
That'd be a first
We
in
get
like
billed
10
for
years
it
too. I mean,
directly.
if
Well,
that's
I'm
the-
just saying, you know what I mean, if everybody picks up the phone and calls.
Well, we've
It-
talked
it
about
sounds
this
like
in
a
the
simple
meeting.
request. It's-
Yeah, it's very
You're
simple.
making,
Sure.
let me just make sure
Chip
you hear
even
it.
says, Jack Dearborn will say, can I have 10 minutes of Bill Drescher's time? I need to ask him this. So I'll say, sure. You know what I mean? It's
That
just a
was from
simple
our
thing.
budget, I thought, Naomi.
What?
Historically, that was supposed to be from our budget, the legal
We see the
support.
bills.
We can certainly talk to you about it, but
Yeah.
there was a legal part of our budget.
Right,
I
I'm
believe.
just saying, but as a volunteer, everybody else can pick up the phone too?
Sure.
There's others that will pick up, I don't think so.
Well, we've had, so we've had the discussion in the,
Because we
in
get
the.
screamed about our legal budgets, so everybody picks up the phone and starts calling.
All right, so
But-
you're
but if
making
they-
a simple
That's
request.
fine, that's
fine,
Does it
yeah,
inform
yeah.
you?
But my question is they keep saying it comes out of their legal line.
It didn't, we paid for it, because I didn't know he called.
Okay.
I signed it. so.
Yeah, I mean, that's nothing we've ever been asked or told before, and we always had, we're supposed to have a legal part of our budget. We've talked about this in our meeting.
Believe me, Naomi, we'd rather have you asking the questions than giving us the answers,
I'm just saying to try to,
Yeah, no.
there's always concern about how much gets spent on legal, but if anybody can pick up the phone and talk to her, it's gotta be charged to somebody, and if it's a volunteer from the town of Weare, it goes on my bill.
Yeah, it should go against our budget.
But it goes on my bill.
Yeah.
It doesn't get broken down, so we
So you
just
don't
pay
see
the bill.
who,
No.
what department
Right.
that supported?
We just
Okay.
pay the
We get a bill.
Yeah, I thought that
We
would
get a
have,
bill
That
for
would be
general
discrepancy.
representation, this date, they might have had a conversation about an easement.
Write that in, tell us to call it.
yeah, my impression was that came directly out of our account,
No.
because we always
We
had
haven't
that.
paid for it at all. That's
Okay.
why I'm asking.
Yeah, well, and that's, good to know. So we will need, obviously, as we move through this
Right.
process with the forester, to budget some amount. I mean, our conservation fund is also available to use. So, I mean, if we just figure out what dollar amount comes, or how you want to
Yeah,
handle that.
Is there a way to structure it so that they can?
Can you
they
make that
have
request to Laura? She can let you know how much
No.
service she's providing to us, so that we can.
I don't see any
Well,
legal line
No,
on
no,
here.
my question.
They don't have legal in their line, no.
I
Right.
thought we
No.
did.
Can we?
It must have get
can
taken
we,
out at some point.
Because of, like the planning board has their own legal line. Zoning has their
Well,
own
no,
legal
no, no.
line.
No,
No,
We have
no.
a legal line. It's got 4 different lines.
Excuse me.
It says legal fees, labor relations, planning board, zoning board, and I think that's all it
Why
says.
can't we
Right,
put
there's no
conservation in there with one
conservation.
line- with one more line?
Okay, but you're gonna be 0 if you hit default.
And that's fine, but I'm just saying that moving forward.
I'm just saying we can.
Moving forward,
I
it
think if
sounds
you put
like,
it in there,
they
We're
probably
not
need the
trying
ability.
to put any
Yeah.
undue
I think
expense
putting it
on
in
it.
there-
And I
So-
didn't, my whole conversation is you ask everybody to go through me.
Yeah, no, and that's,
And I didn't realize,
And
like I
now you're
said.
letting us know,
Right.
and we can do that.
Yeah, this has been going on for like 10,
Yeah.
God, how long have I been on the commission? Long
I'm just
time.
glad he does it, so I don't have to. 'Cause I'm just sitting here, you might be-
handoff, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can break that out, we can actually vote to authorize that out of the conservation fund. That's not a problem.
And again, that's what I was saying, if there was a way to avenue it out there.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how, I'm just asking the logistics of how to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if
I could
you
ask
put
her to
that as a
break down
specific
the
item
bill.
in the line
Yeah.
item, then on the
Yeah, we could
budget,
definitely do
if it
that.
gets zeroed out.
'Cause we're gonna
then
need to
that's why
budget
you can't
for
spend any money out of
And it
it.
may be,
Yeah,
it may.
but you can't spend any money, then it comes out of the other end.
But it may, but if we put that line there
You leave it.
for an attempt,
If you
Right.
leave it-
but if it goes 0, it goes 0. We try for the next year.
Well, Rick, you don't need to do that with a conservation account.
No, they
No.
spend
they have,
theirs.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so
They
you
just need
can,
to enter the bills separately so that,
Just have her
Okay.
separate.
you know.
We have no interest in running up legal fees.
Yeah, we really don't want
Unfortunately,
to.
we are involved with items that.
I can
There's
see
legal
you
issues that
need
come
legal,
forward.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lord knows.
Yeah.
we've got a couple big
So,
ones.
These
already.
so maybe
easement
she
things.
can instead just
Yeah.
section it out and you guys can.
Yeah, sorry about that, Naomi. That was never clear either. It's good when we talk about these things.
Yeah.
We're like sucking up your whole meeting,
The
but
more we
hey.
talk, it's like, all right, well, it just seems like it's, yeah,
Yeah,
miscommunication. Right, so, okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
fortunately, no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Constantine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye, thank you,
you.
Andy.
Mr.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Andy.
And we will see you around, and
Yeah.
Jack, keep
Thank you.
wrestling, it's important. Appreciate what you're doing.
No, and we appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we got it cleared up, so.
That's fine.
Definitely. So, thank you.
Bye, Andy.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh, God.
Okay, so,
I need to go get a drink of water. I'm gonna
We're
faint.
tabling
okay.
those.
All right.
We're tabling those.
All three?
Yeah, I haven't looked at them.
When, we got all three, what, today?
No, you don't have the 19th yet,
No,
Yeah, the 19th isn't ready.
Okay.
Sorry.
but you had 2 days, it's 5 business days, and 2 days were off.
okay, but we're
saying
gonna
no.
table these two.
You want to table 11, 5?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, so we're gonna table,
table of minutes.
again, I think.
Please.
No, just a little reflection. I think that's, again, I think it seems like there's a lot of disconnect
Mm-hmm.
between the commission and the board of selectmen. And I think that we need to, again,
Is that just for,
newer board.
Felicia?
I think we need to improve communication, improve relations with all boards. And that,
I do too.
I think if you start with the Conservation Commission, that's one to start with.
And I think the Conservation Commission should have a board member on it. I understand from tonight that they don't
No,
have to.
it's not one of the required ones.
Right,
not a
but I do
requirement.
think it's,
Yeah,
it's
in
a
the
big
best
enough,
interest.
I think it's in the best interest of the town to have a member, and so I think that,
How does that, is
That's
that
good.
something that we appoint here? That we,
What hoops to
Okay.
jump through for that?
I honestly think that by state law,
That's
you
by
have,
some of it's statutory.
yeah, some of it's statutory, like there has to be one on the
for the
planning board.
and-
Has to be one,
Um,
and
And I think some of them were set up with the
But-
fact that, like the stone fund that was set up, however that was set
Yeah,
up.
that
Yeah.
had one on, I'm on that one.
yeah.
yeah.
CIP, we did it as
Yeah.
the makeup of the CIP was to include a board member.
Incorporate one, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So before we go forward, are we gonna make sure that the planning board makes sure, if they're the last stop, that the surveying is done before they start and the pins are in?
Well, I
On
think
any-
Well, that has to be in there, it has to be within the planning board, zoning board rules for the planning board.
well, I think
Well,
we can.
we may need to add a rule.
Well, I mean, the thing is to
Well, they
break.
have to do it.
They have to do it, so you have to come before the planning board to do it and make a petition to do that.
Well, that's just what I was gonna say. I think we can broadcast out an email of our concerns and the commission's concerns, but actually changing it, I don't think starts with this board.
No, all that,
To the planning board.
that goes to the planning board. I mean, as
And
far as making
It's a
sure.
planning board article, so it's my understanding
I haven't got
that
my book.
there was 3 public hearings on Benji's width of the road, so they're gonna sign the plan. I don't know, they said they had 3 public hearings and nobody showed up.
I only saw one, but
'Cause I asked about it today and they said there's been 3
Really?
public hearings to narrow the road.
I haven't seen
I haven't
anything.
seen them.
Well, I haven't seen
either.
anything.
I've seen one.
And the Facebook page that the library director talked about, he's pretty good about posting public hearings and dates and documents.
Nothing
And I
there.
didn't see anything on there. So I would almost want to ask for proof.
They've got,
And when
yeah, because they,
When they
they
were
want to
posted?
drop it from 22 to 20, 22 foot,
they
24 foot to 22 foot.
I think
Well, they want to go
it's
back to
ridiculous.
I think
18
it's
feet.
ridiculous. I think it should be 24. Why are we changing it?
I'd say 22 to 24, no less than 22.
I think ridiculous to change it myself. But
I
Yeah,
do too. I
talking
agree.
a few thousand, $3,000 or $4,000.
But the problem with it is that, and I don't, it comes on the heels of the developer to make it that way, it's not the town. The developer pays for it.
Right,
When they're
but-
putting it,
That's
putting
right.
the road in.
But
Yeah.
again,
I know.
but you're building in the town, I
Yep,
want
yeah.
to say our town, you're building in our town, you play
Exactly.
by our rules.
That's
But
right.
I mean, and the argument was brought up, they wanted to make it look more rustic a rule.
Who brought that up?
Who do you think?
We're talking 2 different things here. We're
Yeah.
talking road width and monuments, aren't we?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, now we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're
but
talking
monuments,
what?
yeah, the monument, and it says to be set.
Oh,
Yeah, see, that's a tough thing because the plan has to be approved.
Yep,
And they're approved with to be set.
to be
So
set,
once they've made the motion to approve the plan, it gets signed off on.
that's right.
To be set I
You
mean,
could probably go and say, okay, your time is up, time to set certain ones.
Within, or can you put to be set within 30 days or 90 days?
A timeline?
Yeah, you can put
Oh,
timelines on
but to be set before building begins?
them.
Before roads put in? I mean, those
Now,
are,
the roads, no, because
those are non-movable items.
they're gonna put, the road's is already surveyed and marked where it's gonna be.
Yeah, but there's no monuments yet.
But there's no
because
monuments,
pavement.
because there's no
Sure.
pavement.
But what I'm
So
saying is before-
what's gonna
before the
happen,
road
the
goes
only place you can put the monuments is probably the back lines, the back
Which
property
is the
lines.
concern.
Which is a
And,
concern
which
in
is
this.
now, but the easement, now I haven't looked at that
The
plan, so
easement's
I
already
can't
been
tell you.
infringed.
It's
Well,
already- yeah,
but it
it's all
says on it to
infringed.
be placed, the monuments are to be placed, so
Yeah, because what happens is the easement comes through.
the easement
and
may
easement
be,
refers
the
to
road
the
may
plan,
turn up
that's
and go
it.
by the easement, I'm not
It says the
sure.
open space on such and such a plan.
Yeah,
Doesn't even talk about you need some.
So
I
think,
think things need to get changed.
well,
I
Well,
think
that's
it
just
needs
it.
to be
Yeah.
done more, you know,
Well, again, I mean, it's one thing to clear cut the lot, but if there's an easement, to me, the easement was before
Where
the
is the,
developer.
where is the easement? Is it up, is it behind
It's a
these houses?
horseshoe.
It's a horseshoe, it's up at the end of the road, isn't it? That's the way I
And
understand
the
it.
horseshoe was.
Basically the outer boundary of the property, wasn't it?
it's
Yeah,
up at
because
the-
they
up at the
wanted
end of where the roadway's
to,
going.
there wasn't any plan,
Mm-hmm.
which is too bad, is, when I was taking the minutes for them, is there was on these clusters, you got one here, and you got a space in between.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have them meet, and the same thing is, this parcel that's being developed down there had a proposal to run the end of the road to the property line. And that's not what they wanted. And to the property line meant that whole 200-acre parcel
Mm-hmm.
could be continued on through
Yep.
at somebody else's expense. Because if you really look at the map, you could take the end of that, continue through, and you could come out of Brown Ridge. See, we have no connectivity. We build all these dead-end streets just like on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
There's no connectivity, there's no forethought into taking it into a 200-acre parcel and possibly,
Connecting it.
Connecting
even
it.
at 25 years from now, is letting them take it and add a few more lots at their expense. They still have to go through the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
But there
Yep.
was just, I can think of the one off of Colby and the one off of Eleanor Way. Those two would have met.
Mm.
Like when Song High
Right.
and Beach Hill are within
Yep.
100 yards of each other.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, at
Well,
least,
never
if that,
And that
Bartlett
was the same
and
developer.
Jewett.
Yeah.
Was it?
Bartlett and Jewett right there.
back in the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
See, there wasn't any,
It would've
there
made more
wasn't any
sense.
thought of connecting for future,
Right.
You wouldn't have all
for
these
access ways.
turnaround
But,
things.
I mean,
yeah.
Yep.
anything that gets changed to something like that, I mean, we talked about the cluster development tonight. The cluster development is laid out in zoning, so that's a zoning change, which they're in the middle of changing or gonna start to change zoning now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I got a hearing coming up on some stuff.
so I'm just saying, as far as those deal with lot size and slopes and everything else, but, and maybe there's some wording in the open space area of the cluster zoning that
Could get,
addresses
Addresses
it, yeah. You know what I mean?
mm,
But it's the board, the planning board does the zoning and the planning regulations.
yeah, I just think we need to tighten stuff up. I think we're screwing ourselves.
And I'm just confused about really the Collins Landing one. We did that, we monitored it for years ourselves.
What's that?
Tom Carr did it,
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
Tom was on the board.
Town Taz involved in Portland Ave too, or was.
I know, but I'm just saying, well, he did all the monitoring and signed off at that point, and they accepted it for the town, because he was on conservation for several years.
Hmm. Don't know.
Okay. Well, I think it'll be good to have a joint meeting with them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we'll move on to the manifest.
Yeah.
I'll move to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payables checks dated November 29th, 2018, including the following manifests. Payroll manifest, $65,033.75 for weekly payroll, and accounts payable manifest of $45,615.69, for a total of $110,649.44. Is there a second?
Second.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, administrative report.
Let's see. It doesn't matter, they're both, the shorter one is the building and the maintenance one. I phoned and emailed
Walker.
and got nothing, not yet. I phoned him, tried to leave a message, and the voicemail's full. So I emailed him and said, you know, we were led astray when you promised us to give you 17,000 and you guaranteed it would be done this year. I don't have any.
So how do we?
Do we have that, do we have a written contract?
Yeah, you guys signed one with him to give him the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to give him the 17.
And is there a completion date?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
I mean, I can look up the contract, but,
Yes, please.
I mean, my point was, we used a lift this weekend and it didn't take us any time to get one.
No, what I'm saying is
So-
what I'm saying is if we have a contract that's been violated, we need to start action.
Yeah.
You know, because I just can't see, I mean, we may have a couple 40-degree weather, but
Yeah,
I
next
think
week, looks like
over.
it's gonna be in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't,
In the next week or
But if we
two.
can't even go hold the outfit now,
yeah.
you know, we need to really.
Well, and I don't know why the voicemail's full, I really don't, but I.
What
I've
about
also-
sending a
I'd start sending them
certified letter?
Certified letter telling them you've got
Yeah.
30 days to ante
And
up
if they
or else.
don't, yeah, they got
Yeah.
30 days if they, or
Refund.
whatever, or 14 days or something.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Require
or
refund, one
or
of the
we'll
two.
seek legal, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
legal action.
Kind of, we're in the same, I'm not gonna say the same predicament, security camera. I reached out to him too, he's still waiting on one part, I don't know what the one part is. And I reminded him that as of 12/31, if it's not done,
He didn't get
there's no money.
Yep.
Right. So we'll see if that gets somebody moving a little bit more. Underpinnings too cold. Roof. Town office. Well, I think I talked to most of you, some of you came in and actually witnessed it, that we had no, we ran out of oil somehow this weekend.
Oh, my goodness.
So, what I did is I was here on Sunday and it was really cold. So I spent some time upstairs and called them. Our last delivery was April. So I spent some time on the phone and asked for delivery as well as somebody to start the furnace. But I wasn't gonna sit here in the cold, so I left them my cell phone number. I gave them a code to the front door, told them they could come in and start it, but I wanted to know. At 4:30, I got a text from the cleaning lady telling me that there was no heat from 11 to 4:30. So I called the guy, same kid was on. I told him that I still had not had the furnace started. My cleaning person said it's 45. So he was gonna print a ticket and get somebody right on it. Came in at 7 this morning, it's still 45. Nobody got back to me.
Who's the
So-
oil?
Irving.
Perfect.
So I sent a very not kind email this morning to our government account rep. I had to get DPW over here to get us started. No one from Irving.
Did they deliver?
They delivered, because what I found out when I called at 4:30, they had delivered 680 gallons. But today's conversation didn't go that well, because they've put in oil, and they used a stick, and before they'll come back to do it again, that we have to put on a whistle, and I don't know how, we couldn't get a whistle before. So I'm not sure what we're gonna do.
What do you
She
mean?
said they won't fill the
You-
tank
you have
again
to-
until we install a whistle.
Why can't we install the whistle?
I tried to get it installed last time and they said they wouldn't do it. Nobody can do it. I don't know.
What do you mean nobody?
Where's the tank? I don't know where the tank
Where's
is.
where's the fill?
The fill is out there.
The fill's on
So
the
the
outside of
tank's
the
gotta be
building.
someplace close to the,
It's not in
The
the
fill.
building? It's
Tank?
unburied?
it's underground.
Tank's underground, and that's part of the problem, just like we had at the town hall. I have no idea where it is, how big it is.
Well, you know where the pipe is that's going into the tank.
Yeah, so it's not
It's
that
out
far.
here somewhere.
So
It's not that
couldn't,
far away.
couldn't you have somebody with a little teeny excavator come and
No.
kind of scrape
Oh,
it
no.
back?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's-
What?
that's-
Oh, no. You open up a can of worms and you may open up the top of that
She
tank.
said I'd have to
Who
get
knows how deep it
GES, I'd
is?
have to get,
So what you'd have to
Shovel
do,
it?
You
By
could
hand?
shovel it by hand. What you'd have to do is probably get a metal detector and find out where that tank sets.
I've got
Right.
Go
one.
from go from the fill, and lots of
Because she
times
said it's
the
very odd
other
that I would
plug.
take 680, and then it would
Exactly.
read on her stick measurement, it read inches of over 1,000 gallons, but I only took 680. So I'm not sure what is going on, and I don't want to walk down that path
Depends
yet,
on who
but
did the sticking too. If they're not that
I,
sure how they do it.
I don't know, but I'm going to discuss tomorrow options as to what we can do. She said she would talk to somebody about installing the whistle, and I said, you guys told me before that you wouldn't install a whistle. You know, that's
Find
why they
out.
put in 200 here and 400 here, and, you know, I don't know. So we may be into something that
Oh
know.
We
boy.
may be digging and putting a propane tank out there. 'Cause
That's
I'm
exactly-
I'm not in favor
you-
of going with oil still.
Well,
But
I
she
mean, the
said
other thing is
they
you
said that the
don't want
tank
that-
the furnace that I have, I'd have to get a new furnace for propane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's an
definitely-
oil burn, that's an
It's an oil
oil,
burner.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah, but the
Absolutely.
heat exchanger and the actual boiler assembly should be fine.
No, you may have to
No.
get a whole new unit.
No, I
How
don't think
old is
so. I think you'll have to
We went through that
replace
before.
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
got
20
the,
plus.
it's, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so,
20 plus, it's on borrowed time.
so you're gonna have to get a whole new furnace.
A whole
so
new furnace, your boy, yeah, everything else gonna go
it's forced
too.
hot water.
So we're gonna have a conversation tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know that.
Well, that's where, again, that's kind of why I want to cross that propane bridge before we get into this predicament. But here we
Let's
are.
see what I did. Yeah, so I'll see what we talk about tomorrow. I'll let you know. I did talk with Dave, and when he shoveled snow, and a couple times he's been shoveling our snow, and asked him if he'd give me a price to look at the back here where we lose a lot of heat out the doghouse, I call it. So he said he would be interested in looking at it. I just don't know when or why, but he'll give us a price. Security camera I told you about.
Yeah.
I see I run two together here. I meant to delete the food pantry because I moved it over on number 13. So
Okay,
it
I
has
was
nothing to
just
do with
reading
plumbing.
That's good.
Has nothing
Trying to
to
make
do
heads
with
or
plumbing.
tails out
Yeah,
of it.
that's good.
And then the GC, we're going to talk about that during budget season when we get to the
Yeah.
rest of our budgets.
Yep.
If we hop over to the other side, I took off a few things because we finally completed them, like the hazmat plan and something else we finished. Anyway, deliberative session, the budget. So what my plan is to do the smaller budgets on 12/3.
Okay.
Then, once we look at all the smaller budgets, is have Beth put together an overall, see where we are
Mm-hmm.
on 12/10.
Okay.
And I think that, at that point, I think we have to decide who you want back for a second visit. I
Mhm.
mean, who you want to change, do you want to make conversations?
Okay.
We're still well ahead of the schedule. So I think that would be the best shot at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The SEDS adoption, I sent you guys an email, they've still got the opening or the deadline, it's still on the website, the
Okay.
link is till 12/7. I just put down our December meeting schedule just so we didn't forget. Jack and I were together at the NHMA conference, and we actually spoke to all states.
Yeah, I
And
beat up on them at that other one.
The T-Squared Center, who Benji does a lot of his training with,
Okay.
they and all states did a really nice joint called Road Maintenance, and it gave you, it was very informational as far as the different kinds of, it's not a one-type-fits-all. I know Jack did that tonight. But they'll come in and do a few things and just show you the different, and they'll actually have a video of the chip seal and some other things, and
Yep.
what works in some areas doesn't always work in
And
another.
the condition of the
So
roads.
I asked him, and the school's available, and they were available. So we took Thursday, December 13th at 6 o'clock. I've got the school, and having them come in. And what they're going to do actually is they're going to ask Benji to do a little bit of talking, and then they were thinking of inviting the Public Works Director from Peterborough because he just did another different kind of road surface.
And they were talking maybe.
You gonna
bring-
open this up to the public?
It's to the public, yeah.
I just want everybody to come and
So
understand.
you're gonna give that information out to Mike Sullivan so he can put that out?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want people to understand, is,
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah, it's just an
Benji,
option.
there's all sort of things that go into the road. You don't just paint the black stuff on
Oh,
and make
right.
it look pretty.
Right.
There's a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that cause, if there's heaves, if there's frost heaves, what
Yeah.
causes
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some real good diagrams, and so I just thought it would be an informational more than anything, kind of a public outreach. The food pantry, Terry is back to work. She sent me an email today. So I also have asked to have the computer, and I didn't get an answer back on the computer. And the computer's supposed to be ours and dropped off here, but I haven't seen it.
And the metal racks,
Yep.
and,
Those are,
Is this supposed to be the 10th?
and
It is.
what was the other thing? The
I
freezer,
got-
I think
I
the
got-
freezer and the
Not the
refrigerator was all bought with that money, too.
well, I'm looking, that's being looked at too.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't have, and I'll follow up with that, with Terry on that one. And let, see where it falls. Perambulation, I still have not received anything, but I'm not sure if she was gone during the holiday.
Yeah.
So
I was just
as soon as-
curious if you got one. I'd like a
Yeah.
copy, that
Oh,
was
yeah,
all.
of course. Well, you're gonna have to sign it. I'm gonna sign it.
Yeah.
So, and then, and
Are
I
you
have-
kidding me?
Yeah, I have a personal thing I have to do.
No,
Another-
sorry.
That's
I have
it.
Good night.
I've had it this year.
Good night.
Haven't you had that?
Okay.
Enough
And
of
then we
that?
need a non-public at the end of the evening.
Wonderful.
Good night.
Here we go.
Denied.
I'd like a non-public too.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I don't know how to, never mind, I don't know. If I
Okay,
need
well.
one.
All right.
All right,
It's an
Can we do that then?
informational type thing I would
Yeah.
look.
I do have one, I've sent the entire, St. Jean's brought package of all the, properties. This one, 206 and 208
It is?
Mountain Road,
Okay.
wants to close this week. So we need to have you guys sign the deed, and I'll notarize it when we close this week.
Yep.
I have scheduled others, but this is the one deed she got done.
Okay.
If you guys will sign that. Then I have the lease for the town of Goffstown.
You want to sign
For the
all of these in
fire?
here, or just that one?
No,
Fire.
just that one deed
Okay.
for the fire.
Fire only.
Fire only. I'm not sure. He sent me an email on the lease, and I'm like, no, you don't do an email.
No.
So we're asked for that.
Where is it signed here? Town of
It says
Weare.
town of Weare, right?
It says-
Goffstown's down below.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we have a mutual aid agreement with town of Goffstown for building inspection.
Yep.
We
Yeah.
have. So they've made 2 copies. Basically, if they need us, we'll go over there if we can, fit it in, and they do the same for us. So what this is there's 2 copies of the mutual aid agreement. They've asked us to sign, they've already signed, Goffstown has, the selectmen have to sign 2, where it says sign here in 2 places, and 1 gets returned to them. That's all I have, other than there's a little bit of correspondence, but I think I shared all that with you. Then I only have correspondence when you're ready.
Okay.
I don't know if you, I can start correspondence, just a couple things.
Sure.
In your package, I believe I gave you the 1990,
Recommendation.
the recommendation. It was the dispatch study that was done, remember they talked about?
Yep.
It was done in 1990. I think you each got I put a copy for you.
That was awesome.
And then there's, Chief Azine had asked me to provide you this FAQ on the ambulance billing fees.
Yeah, can we request alteration on line 1?
The whole
Because-
thing can be,
Because it does not encumber any operating costs.
no, that's
The
all
only thing
wrong.
that, the only thing that the ambulance revenue.
equipment.
Is equipment and vehicles.
The whole thing is wrong, no, that whole sentence.
And yes, the cost of vehicle and equipment does go up.
But not 58%.
No doubt that stuff goes up, but
Yeah,
again,
it went
the
up since
funding method
13.
is
If since 2013, it's probably gone up 58%.
Well, actually, I had asked for
I doubt it.
a breakout of like.
Trucks haven't
Yeah,
gone
Beth's
up,
gonna
cars
do that.
haven't.
Oh.
Yeah,
Beth-
Financially, yes,
Yeah.
Beth will have to do that.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, I sent you an email, we have a planning board member resigning.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did thank him.
Oh, absolutely.
I thanked him and said if your circumstances change,
Please come
welcome
back.
to come back.
Absolutely.
So I just
Yes.
wanted to thank John Van, that's all we call him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody knows him
He
by.
resigned effectively meeting from the planning board largely for health reasons, and he felt that it was unfair for him to take a seat on the planning board
Right.
where he couldn't attend.
Right.
So
Sure.
when things change in his life, he did say that he would come back or think about coming back. So that's another, I think he was an alternate to the planning board.
He was.
So,
Yep.
Did I
So
sign
thank you for your service, John.
yeah,
Yep.
so I thanked
Oh,
him.
thank
Is
you.
that it? I did have a little correspondence with Jack Dearborn regarding the roads, so I just don't want that to fall off the map, like the Class 6 road discussion that we had.
Oh, okay.
So just refreshing topic, that's all. So,
With the
And
flow chart?
yeah, in
Okay.
regards to that, yeah, just want to make sure that everything's, we may need to continue on that, so I get forgotten.
You didn't sign?
Okay, what?
You didn't sign?
I didn't.
No,
Why didn't you?
no, he did, Ricky.
Ricky.
The
Oh.
top one's empty. There's two of them.
Oh, there's two of them? Oh.
Read the red tab.
Hey, I didn't
Oh.
sign.
So,
Sure, you
I'm
caught me.
sorry, when you say continue conversation, what do you mean by that?
Well, there was discussion about a Class 6 road update right now that,
Hasn't come before us.
correct. So,
But it was my understanding from the flow chart that
Class
the
6
information
roads.
gets sent to the planning board then gave it to Benji, fire department, Benji, returned it to the planning board returned it back to us for review and comment, and we scheduled the person to come in. That's how I took the flow chart.
okay.
Which,
And that's not the way the flow chart goes?
No, it is.
Okay.
Just,
I'm just waiting. That's what I've been instructed everybody to the path.
no, and just like I said, him and I said.
And I could follow up.
Yeah.
I could follow up and see
There were-
with planning board, but I would
There
think.
was a question about, kind of backs up to road standard or driveway standard.
Yes.
Okay.
One versus the other. That was
Yes.
it kind of boiled back to that. That was
Oh, okay.
that was the topic of the
that was,
conversation.
yeah, I know which one you're talking about, yeah.
So,
That it's gotta be maintained if they're gonna build on it, so they can get an ambulance.
how do you build on it? Do you build it to driveway spec or do you build it to Class 5 road spec?
You build it up to the Class 5 road spec.
That was the
That would
discrepancy.
be my guess.
That was the discrepancy, and that was the conversation we had. So,
Yeah.
but
Well,
again,
only because a couple of them that received approval are midstream.
Right.
So you're gonna go a road like this, and then you're gonna do a driveway standard, and then you're gonna go back out. That's.
Right.
what
That
it
doesn't make much
Right.
sense.
So that was the topic.
Well, I
of
just
the
think you have to
conversation.
look to the future. You can't
Yep.
just be,
Yeah.
because if the driveway standards start at 30, taper back to 20.
Right.
It's not a road.
No, and that's the whole thing, putting these house lot developments in and only putting a 20-foot road in. Same
Well-
damn thing.
Well, I think it's
Same thing.
safety at that point.
Yeah, it's a
You
safety
can't
issue.
pass.
Well, and part of it was depending on how many houses you have on the road, the
Yeah.
length of the road,
Goes
so,
in width of the road, yeah.
Yeah.
for the width, that's what the,
That
I
was
think
all-
that just has to be standardized.
correspondence.
Other business, I guess.
Yep, we're into that. Correspondence of the business.
Okay.
Same topic.
Would it be possible to get a copy of the Department of Labor report?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got it that's still writing notes on it, but yeah, I got it
Oh,
upstairs.
that's okay, I don't
Yeah.
care. And, let's see, there was, have we heard from any more people that have tax deeded property that we didn't sell? I mean, are there any in the,
One we didn't sell, we got no bids. Is that what you're asking?
no, well, not the ones not the.
Not
One
this
that
one.
we
You said they're
sold.
additional, you mean?
No, there's ones that we were working on.
Yep, I got one out of the 3 cleared up today.
Okay, okay,
And then I just got to connect, it was a phone tag game.
okay.
there's supposedly money, I don't know, I haven't connected with her,
Okay.
but yes,
Um,
Oh, I know who she is.
Oh,
I know, that's what we were trying to,
Yeah.
I know what she was after.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know what she was after.
Also, we have a public hearing coming up on an employee contract.
Yep.
Can we have a copy of that
Yeah,
contract
I sent
before?
it to, well, I sent the draft to Laura and to Primex, just for a review first.
Okay.
If
I just
there's any
hate walking
changes.
into
Yeah,
something
if
that,
there's any
and we have no
changes,
idea what's in it.
Like I
or-
said, I gave Laura all those auction things. I
Okay,
gave her one to deed back for the payment,
okay.
and I gave her some other things, so, yeah, I just wanted, if there's no changes, I mean, I don't mind giving them the copy,
Right.
but I don't wanna come back and have changes, they make
Right,
changes.
no, I
and-
have no problem
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
I just don't
And
want to
it's
walk into
time.
the meeting
Yep.
and have it handed to me.
The one in reference, the contract hearing in reference is for the fire chief, being held on Monday, December 10th at 5:30 in
That's
the
not
safety
coming to us.
complex.
That's not coming to us.
No, it's file,
That's the Board of Fire.
where's
It's
the
part of
file?
fireworks.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's scheduled time enough that it's an hour
Before us.
before us.
Mhm.
So when is that?
December 10th, 5:30.
December 10th.
Yeah,
It's on this?
No, you
No,
have
No,
it.
You get a letter
it's
in
the-
there.
It's in the
it's
letter.
a posting.
It's
I
a
gave
public
all the
hearing
customers.
notice.
I put it on the door, it's going in the paper.
It's in this packet?
This is
Maybe I
my
missed it.
paper.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed it.
Did Jack take two?
No, I won't.
Jack, did you take two?
No, I didn't.
There you go.
There it is, right
Yeah,
there.
right.
Say, cast aspersions.
Yeah, well, you know, she likes to keep the plots to her.
Is that all correspond to the business?
Don't I have?
All right, move going non-public on RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll be adjourning afterwards, after we have one or two of them.